Hello everyone and welcome back to the stream. I am here today with my good old friend JD. If you remember JD, he was from the unboxing of the War of the Spark. We invited him with us along with Nick, and we are going to be doing a deck construction theme, but we are also going to be doing a deck discussion theme because he has a deck he wants to discuss with us. But it's kind of similar to what I'm doing, which is a Jace tribal theme. Now, Jace is a planeswalker from the Magic the Gathering series. He's regarded as probably the most popular of the planeswalker, and it's kind of the poster child. I'm not sure if that's completely 100% true, but usually when people think of planeswalkers, they think of Jace. Yep. So, I really like the Mind Mage, so I decided I was going to build a deck around him. And the deck he has already assembled and we're going to be discussing is Gideon Tribal. So we have Gideon over here as his commander. And we have Jace Vryn's Prodigy as my commander. So let's go ahead and discuss what these guys do. So we have Jace Vryn's Prodigy. He can tap to draw a card and then discard a card. And then if there's 5 or more cards in your graveyard, you exile him and transform him under its owner's control as a planeswalker. That planeswalker has 3 abilities, and he starts at 5. His +1, up to 1 target creature gets -2/-0 until your next turn. So, that good old Gideon could have no power.
Sad.
Yeah.
Quit bowling, my Gideon. He's such a good lawkeeper.
He is a lawkeeper. Then we have the -3 on Jace Telepath Unbound, which states you can cast an instant or sorcery from your graveyard this turn. If it'd be put into the graveyard, you exile it instead. So it's a Snapcaster Mage trigger on a Planeswalker. That's a pretty powerful ability. And then his -9 is you get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, target opponent puts the top 5 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So he has a built-in mill theme as well.
That's evil.
So the way I was kind of looking at how I was going to build this was, it's going to be kind of creature light, which is kind of unfortunate because it'll struggle against creature decks. So I had to include some non-Jace cards in the deck. But when we're scrolling through this list, it's going to show the Jace cards first, and then the potential cards that are not Jace. Because overall, the deck still has to compete and win games, and I feel it just couldn't do that with Jace cards alone. So I'm going to be giving it a small push in a direction. Yeah. And that's how we also took the Gideon tribal deck as well.
Yeah.
There's cards in there that are not related to Gideon, but he has to be able to win.
Right.
And he made a sub-theme of a soldier sub-theme. So...
yeah, because Gideon's a soldier also, so probably be better.
So we're going to go ahead and hop right into this. And I do have to make about 21 cuts to this, so I'll be making those cuts after I've discussed all the cards that have been listed. So the first cards we're going to be discussing is all the Planeswalkers of Jace. So we have Jace Beleren up next, the original Jace, the OG. He starts at 3, and he costs 3. +2, each player draws a card. This is the most political of the Jaces. Everyone loves drawing cards.
Yep.
And usually if you +2 him, no one's going to attack him. Except for, I know a friend of mine who attacked him after +2. And everyone got mad and murdered his board. It was pretty great.
Someone hates card draw.
He didn't want everyone drawing cards. That was the reason. His -1 is target player draws a card. So that ability makes people mad. Because... you're benefiting from it. You're the only person benefiting from it. People don't like that.
Yeah.
And then his -10 is target player mills 20 cards. Mill is putting cards from a library into a graveyard. Oh. So, you get 20, but he has to hit 10. So it's a long time.
Right.
It's about 4 or 5 turns before you can do that.
Yeah, I could see people possibly taking pot shots at him, just to make sure he doesn't get there, really.
Yeah, that's usually what happens. He hits about 7 or 9, and then people are like, I'm going to hit Jace, so he doesn't hit 10.
Swing Gideon for 1, -1.
Next up is Jace Cunning Castaway. He is a 3-drop that starts at 3 loyalty. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player this turn, draw a card, then discard a card. So he's kind of card draw on that, but I'm going to be kind of creature light. So really what he's going to be used for is more of his -2, which is create a 2/2 blue illusion creature token with when this creature becomes the target of a spell, sacrifice it. So
Yeah.
he makes a body to chump block.
So yeah, basically you're just gonna be most creatures really.
And then his -5 is you create 2 tokens that are copies of Jace Cunning Castaway, except they're not legendary.
Oh, so like you get 2 planeswalkers then, right?
You get 2 additional planeswalkers.
Oh. You could be making blockers all day then.
You have to be able to abuse that, and this deck cannot really abuse that. Next up is Jace the Mind Sculptor. Everyone knows that he is broken. Everyone thinks about how broken he is, but his +2 is he's 4 for that starts at 3, and his +2 is you look at the top card of a person's library, and you can choose to put it on the bottom. I did not realize that it said target player, so I can look at the top card of my library and choose to put it on the bottom.
That's solid.
That's good card selection.
Yeah.
Essentially a scry. 0 is Brainstorm. Draw 3 cards, put 2 from your hand on top. Or back on top. In any order. That's a solid ability. -1, return target creature to its owner's hand. That's a good card if you don't want something to attack.
Right.
And then his -12. Exile all cards from target player's library. Then that player shuffles his or her hand into his or her library.
They're not going to have a library.
They'll have a hand.
Yeah.
That's all they'll have.
Make them regret messing with you.
No one ever ults that. No one ever gets the chance to
Right.
ult that. That Jace the Mind Sculptor hits the field and then immediately gets hated off the field. So
Imagine if the whole table actually let that thing go off.
well, then one person would be dead.
Yep, agree.
They would essentially be dead unless you hit the person with Reliquary Tower and a billion cards in hand. In which case, you're not going to do that. You're going to pick the person who has the smallest hand so that they die fast.
Yeah.
Next up is Jace the Living Guild Pact. He is 4. He costs 4 and starts at 5. You look at the top card of your library, and then you put one. You look at the top 2 cards of your library. Sorry about that. And then you put 1 into your graveyard. That's okay card selection, but it doesn't draw you a card.
No.
So that really hurts that ability. And that makes him regarded as one of the worst Jace planeswalkers. His -3 is return another target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So you can bounce planeswalkers, you can bounce enchantments to hopefully counter them on the way back in. Or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
His -8 is actually really good though, which is each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, and then you draw 7 cards. So your opponents don't draw. Only you do. That's a very powerful effect because you're essentially causing them to lose any of their graveyard interaction that they might have, and you're causing them to basically discard their hand back into their deck.
I guess like you have to have proliferate to kind of help you push that along though too.
Well, proliferate's kind of a sub thing for blue.
Yeah, so
yeah, I'll probably be able to do that.
Yeah.
Next up is Jace, Architect of Thought. He costs 4 and starts at 4 loyalty. His +1 is until your next turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls attacks, it gets -1/-0 until end of turn. So there's no politicking on that one. It automatically does it. It weakens boards. So it's semi-helpful because it hits all opponents too. It's not just like the Telepath Unbound only hits one creature. It's all opponents' creatures get that debuff. His -2 is reveal the top 3 cards of your library. An opponent separates them into 2 piles. You pick a pile and put that pile into your hand, and then put the other into the grave. It's a small fact or fiction.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. His -8 is kind of ridiculous. And it's for each player, you search their library for a card and exile it. And then they shuffle their library, and you can cast that card without paying its mana cost.
That's actually really good.
Yeah, I get to steal the best card out of everyone's deck.
Oh gosh. Steal a Ulamog from Rakdos. Kozilek, oh god.
Steal a good old Gideon of the Trials.
Oh no. Oh, no.
You didn't think about that strategy.
I did not think about that strategy. Oh,
the only thing it can't steal is a commander. That's the only thing it can't steal, because it's not in the deck. It's in the command zone. So I can't steal Gideon, but I could steal any of your other big stuff. I could steal your Call the Gatewatch, dig up one of my own Jaces.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
I could steal any of your tutor effects that I know that you run.
That would...
I could steal other people's tutor effects to dig up cards in my deck to win.
Oh.
So, literally, it's just the best of what you want.
Right.
What you need is what you get. And then I also get to search my deck for something, too. Because it says each player. So I gotta dig up my best cards, too.
Oh, so yeah.
So that ult is ridiculous and backbreaking.
So, like, say, you can, like, just play Gideon the Mind Sculptor, like, without paying its mana cost, then?
Jace the Mind Sculptor? Yeah, I could cast that without paying its mana cost.
Wow.
But the deck... I think my deck's converted mana cost is actually overall really low. There's a few exceptions in here, but some of them might get cut. Next up is the newest Jace. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. He actually has a passive ability, but he starts at 4, and he costs 4 to cast. And his passive is the Laboratory Maniac Clause, which is, if you would draw a card when you have no library, you win the game instead. So, he's a win condition by himself, with just that ability. His +1 is target player mills 2 cards, and then draw a card. So he's card draw, he mills people. It's nice. His -8 is draw 7 cards, then if you have no cards in your library, you win the game. So if you happen to draw exactly 7 cards from your library, you automatically win off of it.
Wow.
You don't have to draw the extra. Pretty good ability, actually. I like this Jace. This is actually one of my favorite Jaces. I just like the name of it and the picture. He looks like he's about to unleash some powerful mind magic.
Right, just like how I did like the art, just like how I like the art from Gideon Blackblade. That one's cool too.
Yeah,
they did good with the Planeswalker art in this set.
They did excellent with the Planeswalker art in War of the Spark. But next up we have Jace, Memory Adept. Everyone knows this Jace as Mr. Mill Jace. He is Mr. Mill.
Mr. Mill.
He costs 5 and he starts at 4 loyalty. His +1 is draw a card. Target player mills the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So, not as good as the mill off of Wielder of Mysteries, but still a pretty good +1. Here's why he's known as Mr. Mill. 0. Target player puts the top 10 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard.
And that's a 0?
That's a 0.
0.
So, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
I'd be mad if, like, you got, like, one of my Gideon Master of the Trials in that, if you did that.
Yes. Oh. That'd be best case scenario, because he'll cause problems for me.
Yeah.
And then his ult is at 7. Any number of target players each draws 20 cards.
Read that again.
Any number of target players each draw 20 cards.
Well, better hope you have a Reliquary Tower.
It doesn't matter if you have a Reliquary Tower, you're drawing 20 cards.
Yeah.
So you can kind of politic with this if you say, I'm going to just plus my Jace Memory Adept, and when he hits 7, everyone's going to be drawing cards.
Alright, he did say any number of players. So I see.
So unless someone makes themselves hexproof, I can target them with that.
Oh.
So if someone makes themselves hexproof, they're kind of exempt from that because I can't target them anymore.
Right.
Or if they have Shroud. But I don't think anything gives a player Shroud. I think it only gives them hexproof.
Yeah, because I know the new Teo gives you
hexproof.
Hexproof.
Leyline of Sanctity only gives hexproof. Then there's Witchbane Orb, which gives you hexproof, and then Orbs of Warding, which only gives you hexproof. There's 4 cards.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I knew all 4 of those off the top of my head. I'm like an encyclopedia sometimes. It's scary. Next up is Jace, Unraveler of Secrets. This Jace has probably one of the most hated ults that I've ever seen. I've played against this ult, and it was not fun. But we're going to start off with what he does. He costs 5, and he starts at 5 loyalty. He has +1, scry 1, then draw a card. That ability is good card selection.
Yeah.
Because, I don't need this land, pitch it to the bottom, hopefully draw something good. Or, this is an amazing card, just put it back on top, draw it.
I'd say, he's one of my favorite Jaces because I actually do like that Jace.
He's a really good Jace.
Yeah.
-2, return target creature to its owner's hand. They fixed the ability that was broken on Jace the Mind Sculptor by making it a -2. Everyone thought that the -1 on Jace the Mind Sculptor was the most powerful ability, but brainstorming, in my opinion, is really powerful too.
Right. I remember I was trying to pull that Jace so hard in Shadows over Innistrad so bad because I really wanted him. Then I heard TCG players says, "Wow, I could just bought him instead of spending all that money on packs to get him."
Yeah,
but
he was not considered a good standard card. But his -8 is a big old problem for other people. His -8 states, you get an emblem with, whenever an opponent casts his or her first spell each turn, counter that spell. So he's automatically just countering spells. Even though it's the first one of each turn, you can just pitch something small, but if your deck is suffering in card draw, that is backbreaking.
Oh yeah.
Or if you have a really high curve, that's just backbreaking to keep up with.
Right, because you have to play something small, then big. Yeah.
And if you're suffering in card draw, then you're sometimes not playing anything for 2 turns. 2 or 3 turns, because you could draw land off the top, and that doesn't count as a spell.
Right.
Alright, next up is Jace, Ingenious Mind Mage. He's one of the dual deck ones, so his power level is overall, in my opinion, a lot weaker than the other ones. He costs 6 and he starts at 5. +1 is draw a card. His other +1 is untap all creatures you control. And his -9 is gain control of up to 3 target creatures. That is a really weird ability for him, because he's not really in the whole mind control kind of thing, but I guess mind control and control magic do have Jace flavor texts, so they're listed in the deck list somewhere.
Right.
But
of course, this is the time when he lost his memories, right?
yeah, it's either he just got him back, because it says Ingenious Mind Mage,
right?
so I think he would have gotten him back by that point. But overall, it's a really weak Jace because I'm not playing him in a creature-based deck, and most of the time he's just going to be +1 draw a card.
Yeah.
People will probably just knock him down a little bit so I don't get to steal 3 creatures, because stealing 3 creatures is actually pretty good. But at -9, that might be too much for that. I would have made that at a 7 and chopped down his loyalty by 1.
Yeah.
And then the last Jace we have is Jace, Arcane Strategist. He has a passive because he's from War of the Spark. His passive is kind of weak for this deck too. It says whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. That is not very great for this. And he costs 6 for that kind of effect. It would be a different story if it said put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, but it's only 1 creature. And for 6 mana, I'd rather have it say each. But he's not really known for putting +1/+1 counters on creatures anyways, so that's just kind of a meh ability. A meh passive, in my opinion. He starts at 4 loyalty, and his +1 ability is draw a card, so he can essentially get a counter every time.
Yeah.
And then his -7 is creatures you control can't be blocked this turn. So he makes your entire board unblockable, but Venser did that better. Venser the Sojourner was a planeswalker that could just do that as a -1.
Right.
Which is a lot cheaper than -7. So that's overall kind of another weak one, and he'll probably just be there to draw me a bunch of cards.
Yeah, Because you're not running that many creatures either.
No, I'm not running a ton of creatures. Alright, so now that we got that settled, the theme of the deck was Jace, so I used Jace cards that had Jace in the picture, Jace flavor text, or things that mention Jace. Like if they had Jace in the name or something like that. So, obviously, the new Brainstorm from Jace's spellbook is in there. So, Brainstorm is draw 3 cards, put 2 from your hand on top of your library in any order. I think that card is excellent. For 1 mana at instant speed, it's hard to beat that kind of value. Because you get to see 3 cards and put your 2 worst cards back on top. Or put 2 things that you want to be on top back on top. Like, I don't know, a miracle card?
Oh, yeah. Because, like, miracle...
Then, next turn. I drew a miracle.
Oh, right. Because, like, miracle cards, you have to play them, like, when you draw them, right?
Yes, if it's the first card you've drawn that turn.
Yeah, because, like, Reforge the Soul is, like, the red one.
Yep. But I'm not running any miracles, so we don't need to worry about that. So it's really just giving me good card selection.
Yeah.
Next up is Mystical Tutor. This card is broken. 1 mana, 1 blue for an instant. Search your library for any instant or sorcery and reveal it and put it on top of your deck. Seems pretty good.
For any amount, or?
For any instant or sorcery. Any one.
Oh.
But for 1 blue and instant speed, that's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
That's just pure value. And since I'm running a mostly spells deck, I'm going to get a lot of choices off of that. Next up is Epiphany at the Drown Yard. We discussed Fact or Fiction, and this is a bigger version, except you get to pick how much you want to go into it, because it costs X. And it is also instant speed, but for those who don't know, you pay X in a blue, you reveal the top X cards of your X plus 1 cards of your library, and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of those piles, and you put that pile into your hand and the other into your grave. I didn't realize that it said X plus 1. So I could literally just pay 1 and get the top card off my deck.
Right, so then you'd have only, like, 2 cards, really.
I'd just be essentially replacing that.
Yeah.
That is something I didn't know about that card. I should learn to read my own cards. Next up is Jace's Phantasm. We have a creature, guys!
Yay!
He costs 1 blue for a 1/1 that flies, and he gets +4/+4 as long as an opponent has 10 or more cards in his or her graveyard. What kind of cards have I been running? Maybe there's Mill Jace in the deck. Maybe there's Jace Bellerin in the deck.
Gosh, I wonder how you're gonna do all that.
I wonder how I'm gonna mill people.
Yeah.
Or he'll sometimes just get that way as the game progresses.
Right.
It happens sometimes. So, overall, that's a really good creature, because I can sometimes just pay 1 for a 5/5. Seems pretty good to me.
Yep.
Next up is Dispel, 1 blue, counter target instant spell.
That's really good.
That's actually an excellent card. For 1 blue, you get to counter any other counter spell, anything that someone's trying to do at the end of your turn, or just anytime someone's trying to do some instant speed shenanigans, you can just be like, yeah, no.
Right.
And it's 1 blue. That's just outright value. Next up is Clash of Wills. Not my favorite counterspell, but it's pretty good anyways. It costs X in a blue, and you counter target spell unless its controller pays X. So you get to determine how much mana you want them to waste on it.
I like that one though, because I mean, if they're paying, if you
pay 6, they have to pay 6. Otherwise, you get rid of it.
Right. It's also like people who like have high mana cost, you know.
Yeah.
Like make them
pay more.
Pay more, but of course, like then.
And honestly, a lot of times the way our playgroup usually plays is they like to count their mana and then do a bunch of stuff in one turn, leaving like maybe 2 mana open.
Right.
For other stuff, just in case. But then you can just be like, oh, this key piece, yeah, you have to pay more for this, otherwise you lose it. And you can just disrupt a plan. Yeah. That's really what it's useful for. It's just disrupting plans.
Yeah, of course. Then, of course, like, you're tapping your own mana, though, when you could be casting another instant spell, though, no?
Yes, but if you're doing that, you're usually trying to stop someone from doing a winning strategy.
True, yeah.
That's usually how I see that. It stops someone from winning the game.
Yeah.
Potentially. Next up is Soul Ring. I don't need to explain
Staple.
that. It's a commander staple. Taps for 2 mana. For 1. Pretty good. Next up is Negate. This is one of the best counter spells in my mind. Because 1 and a blue, counter target non-creature spell. You don't hit creatures, but I hit planeswalkers.
Oh, wow.
So Gideon's not safe from it, but all your other soldiers are.
Very funny. Could you counter a land with that even if you wanted to?
No, lands aren't spells, so you can't
gotcha.
counter land. And then next up is the aforementioned counterspell. The best counterspell, probably. Pay 2 blue, counter target spell. It's not the best counterspell, but it is one of the best, in my opinion.
Yep.
Just, oh, yeah, I don't like that thing. No.
Whoop.
Next up is Contingency Plan. You look at the top 5 cards, and you put any number of them into your graveyard, and the rest back on top in any order. And it costs 1 and a blue. At sorcery speed. That one's not an instant. But you get to dig 5 cards deep and decide what you want.
Right.
And then you just get rid of the rest of it.
That'd be a little bit broken if it was instant speed.
Not really. There's Factor Fiction, which is instant speed, and
Yeah.
but it costs 4. At 2, it would be kind of broken. They'd have to add 1 or 2 mana onto it for it to be an instant. But overall, that's a pretty good spell. It's good card selection, considering it's cheap and it digs deep.
Right.
Next up is Unsubstantiate. 1 and a blue at instant speed. Return target spell or creature to its owner's hand. So, Clash of Wills. This is basically Venser's ability, except it doesn't hit permanents. Venser Shaper Savant is a very known creature, because it can bounce spells to hand. This is a spell that does that. But Venser also bounces a permanent and not just a creature. So Venser's is still better, but he costs 2 additional mana to cast. But you also get a 2/2 body attached to it, so which is pretty good. So Unsubstantiate is still an excellent card, and I really like it. Next up is Perilous Voyage. It's 1 and a blue at instant speed. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. If its converted mana cost was 2 or less, scry 2. Let's be honest. This is Commander. We're not wasting this on a 2-drop. We're using this on something big, so I'm never going to be getting the scry trigger. But it's a non-land permanent that I don't control. So if someone tries to steal my turn, they can't bounce my own stuff with that.
I thought you were about to mention Gideon there, too.
Well, I could bounce Gideon, but that seems like a waste.
Well,
unless it's the other side.
Yeah, well,
Gideon Battleforge is kind of really good.
Well, unless, like, I attack with 2 more creatures to try to flip Gideon, do that.
Yeah, because then he goes at the end of combat, and then I'd just be like, actually, even then, Perilous Voyage bounces Gideon, and I still get a scry 2 because he technically has 1 converted mana cost.
Yep.
So yeah, that's pretty great. Next is Flood of Recollection. You pay 2 blue at sorcery speed, get an instant or sorcery out of your bin, out of your grave, and then you exile this. Pretty good. Reusing my spells.
Right.
Okay. So next up we have a lot of card text because we have Thematic Compass and Spires of Orazca. So Thematic Compass states it's 2 for an artifact, and you can pay 3 and tap it to dig up a basic land and put it into your hand, and then you shuffle your library. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 7 or more lands, you transform Thematic Compass into Spires of Orazca, which it taps for a color. It turns into a land, and it taps for a colorless mana, but you get a Maze's Ith. You can untap target attacking creature an opponent controls and remove it from combat. Oh, it says opponent. It's not as good as Maze of Ith, because Maze of Ith can remove your own stuff.
Oh, this one says a target opponent though, so
yeah. An attacking creature an opponent controls, but it does stop Gideon, because he can turn into a creature.
Yeah, it does stop Gideon.
I'm comparing it to your Gideon deck because we're going to be discussing it.
Right.
And it's also showing you weaknesses in the deck.
It is, yeah.
Not discussing exile magic because I don't have any instant speed exile stuff that fit the theme.
Right.
So next up is Azor's Gateway.
Oh.
Everyone I showed this card to was like, Jace is in this? And I was like, yes, he's on the front. He's in the picture.
That surprised me when I saw that.
So what this card does is it costs 2 for a legendary artifact. You pay 1 and tap it, and you draw a card, and then you exile a card from your hand. If cards with 5 or more different converter mana costs are exiled with Azor's Gateway, you gain 5 life, untap the Azor's Gateway, and then you transform it. I didn't realize it untapped itself. So then you get Sanctum of the Sun, which says tap, add X mana of any one color to your mana pool, where X is your life total.
You'd be casting stuff all day.
I'd be running through my deck.
Yeah, which is kind of what you might want to do for your Jace Wielder of Mystery.
Yeah, if I'm trying to win that way,
yeah,
Sanctum of the Sun is a great way of getting through the deck quick, because I get to just go for it. However, the problem with this card is it's so slow. There was not a lot of untapped shenanigans within the Jace cards, so Azor's Gateway is going to be a slow burn. People are going to see it coming from a mile away, and they'll likely just get rid of it when I play it.
Right.
Or they'll make me exile 4 cards and then destroy it.
Right.
Or bounce it. Because if it gets bounced back to my hand, I still don't get access to those 4 cards. It loses them.
Right. And, but when it flips so they can't get rid of the legendary land, right?
They can get rid of the legendary land. There's no clause on it that says they can't. So a Vindicate can get rid of it. Strip Mine can get rid of it. Any land destruction can get rid of it.
Gotcha.
It's just, there's not a lot of land destruction.
Newmont.
We don't discuss Newmont. Because you do realize that Newmont would never get through. You'd play Newmont and he would just be back in your hand.
Yeah. He's a good guy, though.
Listen to him talking about land destruction like it's a good thing. It's not. It's a mean thing to do. But milling isn't much better, but...
Newmont just wants to give hugs to people.
I doubt that.
He just takes a piece of them away with him.
Anyways.
Yep.
Next up is Memory Lapse. It costs 1 and a blue. You counter any spell, but it goes back on top of their library instead. So it can slow people down.
Right.
Because then they're also wasting time redrawing what they already cast.
Did I play this card? I better play it now. Memory Lapse.
Yeah. So it's kind of an awkward counterspell, but I do like it.
Yeah.
Slowing them down for a turn can be useful. Next up is Strategic Planning. Hey look! Gideon!
And Jace!
Yes, Gideon and Jace are both in this picture, but it's a blue card, so Gideon can't run it. But what it is, it's a sorcery for 1 and a blue. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. So you dig 3 deep for 2 at sorcery speed, pick the best thing in it, put it in your hand. The other just go to your yard.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
The only unfortunate part about this card is if you hit 3 good things, then you have to pick what good thing you want, what you want to be doing.
Right.
So if you hit 3 different strategies, you have to pick what one you're locked into with this.
Right.
And also sculpt it based on your hand.
Yeah.
So, really, Jace's deck is all about card selection and just getting good cards.
Right, trying to assemble the pieces.
Yes.
I also like to comment on that art. That'd be a good versus poster if we ever do the decks against each other.
But they're strategizing. It's not a versus thing. That's the only issue with it, because there's bolus horns in the background.
Yeah, true.
So then we have Essence Scatter. 1 and a blue, counter target creature spell. Not my favorite counter spell. Counter spells that are that narrow, I generally don't run. Just because it's only able to hit one thing, but usually everyone has a creature that I know of.
Yeah.
In the form of their commander, so I could counter that.
Yeah.
Omnath is something that would probably eat that in a heartbeat. Niv Mizzet Reborn would eat that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, good way to get rid of Rakdos also.
Rakdos, Lord of Riots, eats that like 16 times in a row.
Commissioner Rakdos, Lord of Hugs.
He does not hug anything. He hates everything. The way you built it makes it hate everything. Mr. Eldrazi over here with Lord Rakdos.
Commissioner Rakdos, he keeps Ravnica safe.
Okay, he probably does. But anyways, we digress. Next up is Jace's Erasure. 1 and a blue for an enchantment. Something not at instant speed.
Wow.
Ooh. But this stays around.
What a find.
Whenever you draw a card, you may have target player put the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. I'm already drawing a bunch of cards off of my Jaces, so that could be milling someone for quite a bit.
Oh. Yeah.
It is a card that's probably not going to be liked, but the only thing about it is it's fair because it says target player.
Right.
So I could also target me with that.
Right.
If I'm going for the self-mill strategy
like,
to get Jace Wielder of Mysteries win.
Imagine if you did when Jace's ult where you draw 20 cards, any number of players, draw 20 cards with that out.
There's a card that's worse in here for that.
Oh.
But I've already thought about that.
Yeah. Because then they'd be drawing 20 cards but then losing 20 cards.
Yep. So then next up is Contentious Plan, and this kind of fits one of the sub-themes of the deck, which is Proliferate. You pay 1 and a blue for Proliferate, and then you draw a card. It's doing everything I want it to do. Buffing my walkers, drawing me a card.
Right.
Honestly, it'd possibly be worth it just if it said Proliferate for 2. That's a powerful effect.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
It's hard to beat kind of some value like that.
Planeswalkers appreciate being proliferated.
They do. Plus, there's also some other strategies in the deck that need counters and stuff like that.
Right.
But then we have Dramatic Reversal. Untap all non-land permanents you control. I'm not running the infinite combo with Isochron Scepter in this. Don't ask me to. It's not going to happen. Plus, I don't think I run enough Mono Rocks to make that work.
Right.
But there is an infinite combo with it. And most of the time, it's going to be a very spell-centric deck. So I'm not sure if I'm actually going to use this often. Because it's just going to untap Mana Rocks. It doesn't untap my land. And my creatures generally don't do much.
Right.
There's a few that do really good stuff, but just getting a one-time untap effect, it's not great. We have Mind Sculpt up next. 1 and a blue at sorcery speed. Target opponent puts the top 7 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Mill 7.
Yep.
For 2. That's not the best mill card. A lot of people think that Glimpse the Unthinkable is a lot better. And in theory it is, but its converter mana cost is a blue and a black.
Right.
So it's a lot more color specific.
Yeah,
and for losing 3 cards, you get rid of the color specificness.
Yeah, what would you say if that was at instant speed there, the Mind Sculpt?
Actually, Glimpse the Unthinkable might be instant speed. That's probably why it's broken. And that's why it's used. I'd have to double check that.
Right.
But if this was at instant speed, this card would be excellent. Just, you tutored on the end of my turn. Okay, you're going to mill the card you just tutored for if you put it on top.
Oh, jeez.
So, good job! You set up for this turn to get a bunch of stuff into the yard or get a bunch of stuff into your hand for value? Mill it all.
Yep.
Send to Sleep is a great card in my opinion. Instant speed, 1 and a blue, tap 2 target creatures. If you have Spell Mastery, which means if you have 2 or more instants or sorceries in your graveyard, like I'm never going to have it, those creatures don't untap during their next untap step. That works on Gideon planeswalkers too.
Like I said, that would be murder on my Gideons because you tap them
and then they don't untap during the next untap step, which makes them extremely vulnerable to attack.
Gideon Blackblade would be a really good target because he instantly turns into a creature at my turn. Gideon Blackblade does.
Mm-hmm. Gideon Blackblade instantly turns into a creature, but let's be honest here. You would use it on a Gideon that would be forced to is mostly combat related.
Right.
Something like Gideon Champion of Justice, which its powers and toughness is based on the amount of loyalty it has.
Right.
Stuff like that is what you would be aiming for.
Right.
Also, that Champion of Justice is terrible against this deck. Because we've seen how many creatures? I think 2.
Oh, yeah.
My My commander is one of the 2 creatures we've seen.
I would have a hard time getting him up, though. But, of course...
If you ever do, that ult is devastating.
Just like our other buddy's zombie deck. Imagine if we got all the zombies out, then get some loyalties on that.
Yeah. But you also have to worry about him smacking it the next turn. So you need a way to not let him smack it.
That's why when I say this, let's politic.
Good luck. Okay, next up is Psychic Rebuttal. This is a counterspell that's kind of interesting and kind of annoying with its requirements. It costs 1 and a blue, and it counters target instant or sorcery spell that targets you. So it has to target me as the player.
Right.
That's kind of annoying. However, if you have Spell Mastery, you get to make a copy of that spell, and you get to choose new targets.
Right. That'd be like you as the planeswalker, though, right?
Me as the player.
I mean, yeah, the player.
So if you had something that targeted me,
which there was
like, oh, you're going to be discarding your hand, I could be like, okay, I'm going to Psychic Rebuttal, and you're discarding your hand instead.
Yeah, I'm mainly just going to be hitting your face, though, because like, I don't have any really spell cards that
do any targeting to me.
Right.
So yeah. So that can be a really dead card in some situations, but other times it's an okay card.
Right. But I got a question on that card. Like, what happens if it says like hits every player though? Like
It's not targeting me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So Psychic Rebuttal wouldn't work on something that targets everyone. Next up is Redirect. 2 blue. You may choose new targets for target spell.
That's a good one.
Sweet. Simple. Oh, you're blocking? I'm going to Divine Arrow. Okay, you're going to Divine Arrow. You're Gideon.
Oh, gosh.
It won't do anything to Gideon,
well,
but...
it depends on which Gideon, though, because, like...
all of them have the Prevent Damage clause.
I don't think Oathsworn does.
He has the Prevent Damage clause. He doesn't have the Indestructible clause, though.
Gotcha.
So, Redirect is a fun spell. I like it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a better Psychic Rebuttal, in my opinion.
But
it stops... I guess they're kind of the same thing.
Buff my creatures?
No, this is better, because I can stop it from targeting my planeswalkers.
Right.
Next up is Sky Diamond. It comes into play tapped, and it taps for a blue. That's all it does. It's ramp for 2.
Yep.
Next card after that is Sapphire Medallion. Pay 2. Your blue spells cost 1 less to play. That is pure value in a monocolor deck, which I'm playing a monocolor deck. That makes this Jace cost 1 to cast.
I got a question. Like, is there a white version of that one?
Yes, there's a Pearl Medallion, which is the white version. There's one for each of the colors.
That might be good to put in this one here, then.
It would be good if you have it.
Right. I got a question. Like, would that make Kithion free?
No, it reduces colorless. It reduces the generic cost. It doesn't reduce a colored cost.
Oh, gotcha.
So anything that's 1-drop and costs 1 white doesn't get reduced.
I better ask, yeah.
Yeah. It's a good question. That's why I brought up this Jace, though, because he does have a generic
Gotcha.
So that'd be one of the few instances where I probably wouldn't cast that on turn 2, is if I have this card in hand.
Right.
Cyclonic Rift. Everyone hates this card. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand for 1 and a blue. Or you can overload it for 6 and a blue to replace each instance of target with each. So I can literally just bounce everyone's board for 7.
Right.
That isn't me. Pretty good card.
Yeah.
Pretty powerful. Everyone hates this card. Next up is Drowned Secrets. Not a Jace card. Also, the last 4 cards we've read now have not been Jace cards. These are just kind of quality of life.
Right.
And since I've been choosing a mill sub-theme, this is another mill enchantment. So it's 1 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cast a blue spell, target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their grave.
That's good.
That's a good card.
Yeah.
Because how many blue spells am I running?
A lot.
All of them, basically.
Yep.
Except for my artifacts. So that's a pretty good card. Next up is Induced Amnesia. This card's really interesting, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to abuse it. But it costs 2 and a blue for an enchantment, which is weird. When Induced Amnesia enters the battlefield, target player exiles all cards from his or her hand face down, then draws that many cards. When it leaves when Induced Amnesia is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return the exiled cards to their owner's hand. So the reason this card is so interesting is you can kind of screw up someone's plan early. Like,
Right.
if you know they took a hand because they had a bunch of ramp or something in it, it's like, oh, this is going to be great.
Right.
You can just be like, I'm removing all your ramp.
Right.
But then if they get rid of it, they get it back. If they get rid of it in the right way.
Yeah, because, I mean...
Because if I'm able to bounce that card back to my hand, those cards that they exiled remain exiled. If they exile this enchantment, those cards remain exiled.
Real.
It has to go from the battlefield into the graveyard. That's the key phrasing here.
Right.
And that's why that card is so interesting, but I would want an ability to abuse that card myself. And I don't think I have a way to do that. But it's kind of a mill strategy, kinda.
Right.
So we'll see if I keep it, because I need to make a bunch of cuts to this yet.
Yeah.
We have Guildpact Informant. It is 2 and a blue for a 1/1 flying fairy rogue, and when it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, great cause there, you proliferate. Chump Gideon. Proliferate mine.
And that's the thing, I don't have that much flying stuff in here, too, either.
No, you have a bunch of ground troops.
I have the Pegasus Gideon rode on.
Yes, you have the Trusted Pegasus. But this card is great, it proliferates, and it's repeatable proliferate. Great card. Next up is Pieces of the Puzzle. 2 and a blue. For a sorcery, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Put up to 2 instant and or sorcery cards from among them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. So you get the 2 best instant or sorcery cards. And I think you can possibly grab 2 instants and 2 sorceries. You don't get to grab 4 cards, but you get to grab 2. It's a pretty good card.
Oh, yeah.
Digs 5 deep, but it's a bit pricey at 3. This is where the stuff is starting to get kind of iffy. My deck is going to be kind of relying on keeping my curve pretty low. So, as I go higher, I'm going to be like, is this card worth it? Like Sphinx's Tutelage.
Yeah, understandable.
Oh boy, Sphinx's Tutelage. This is a card monocolor decks hate. Absolutely hate. It costs 2 and a blue for an enchantment. When you draw a card, target opponent puts the top 2 cards of his or her deck into the grave, so it mills 2. If they're both non-land cards that share a color, repeat this process. Yeah, that's a card that exists in Magic.
Oh, God.
And this is whenever I draw a card. I'm already drawing a bunch of cards.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And that's not all the text on that. You can pay 5 and a blue to draw a card, then discard a card. So this allows me to draw a card itself.
Right.
So...
Oh, God.
That's pretty broken.
It is, yeah.
Monocolor decks hate this card because it's just like, oh, yeah, mill 2. Oh, you've just milled 6 cards. Great.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you know people are setting up their top decks. No Escape. This is kind of like the Essence Scatter, but I think this is better because it is an instant for 3. It costs 1 more, but it counters target creature or planeswalker spell. And if it would be countered this way, you exile it instead of putting it into the grave. And then you scry 1. So it gives you card selection. It hits creatures and planeswalkers. And it exiles. Getting into the Trials. This has a special home just for that.
Oh, gosh.
No, it probably won't be just Gideon of the Trials eating that card, but a lot of times it will, because I'll have problems dealing with Gideon Planeswalkers. Unless I can Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah, could you Cyclonic Rift his emblem, though, or...?
No, the emblem you can't interact with in any way. The emblem is just kind of an outside force.
Gotcha.
So imagine your board. Emblem's up here next to your head.
Nope.
That you can't do anything with.
Hurry up, Gideon, get back up there. I need you.
Next up is Jace's Triumph. Great card. Draw 2 cards for 3. so it's a divination. If you have a Jace Planeswalker, though, you get 3 cards instead. So drawing 3 cards for 3, that's pretty good.
You're going to have a Jace out anyways, so it's good, yeah.
It's going to be hard to keep Jace Vryn's Prodigy off of his Planeswalker side.
Right.
Actually, I should run the 1,000-year elixir in here, too, because that activates activated abilities as if they had haste. But that's not the point. Right. So this says whenever I would draw a card, I have to discard a card, but if there's 5 or more cards in my grave every time I tap this, it transforms into a Planeswalker. So it's going to be hard to keep me off of a Jace Planeswalker when I can just get one so easily.
Right.
Unless it's been killed like 16 times. Then it's going to be too expensive to cast. Next up is Uncovered Clues. You pay 2 and a blue to look at the top 4 cards of your library at sorcery speed. You reveal up to 2 instant and or sorcery cards from among them and put the revealed cards into your hand and put the rest on the bottom in any order. This card is kind of odd just because it puts them on the bottom. And it doesn't dig as deep as some of the other cards I've seen. Like, Contingency Plan digs 5 cards deep for 2.
Right.
This digs 4 cards deep and doesn't let me get anything I want. Only instants and sorceries. So if I hit a Planeswalker with this, the Planeswalker goes to the bottom. Which is really irritating.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how to feel about this card. Next up is Trail of Evidence. It's 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, investigate. So you create a token that's a clue. You can pay 2 and sacrifice the clue to draw a card.
Yep.
So if I have a bunch of extra mana, I can draw a bunch of extra cards if I have a bunch of clues.
And then mill people.
If I have an enchantment that says that. Or I could just dig for the enchantments this way.
Yeah.
So remember how I said there was a card that was worse than Jace's Erasure? This is the one. Psychic Corrosion. For 2 and a blue, you get an enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their grave. So let's discuss that Jace ulti about drawing 20 cards.
Okay. This is a problem.
So, how do you feel about losing 60 cards?
I don't like it.
Because, hi there, good friend. You get to draw 20 cards. And then I'm milling you for 40. Plus whatever other enchantments are out that I can mill with.
I'm gonna laugh, though. If, you do all that, then it doesn't get rid of Gideon the Trials. Then I draw Gideon Trials as
you have to realize that I'm also drawing those 20 cards too there, buddy.
Yep.
So, here's a Cyclonic Rift.
Oh. Yeah.
So now you get to go to discard. Plus there's other strategies that make you really not want to play spells in this deck. There's a particular card and it's really kind of spicy.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
But next up, we have Oath of Jace. We have to have his Oath.
Yep.
It only makes sense to have it. It's 2 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, then discard 2. So it's a worse Brainstorm. But at the beginning of your upkeep, you scry X, where X is the number of planeswalkers you control. I should always at least have 1.
Yep.
So this is kind of a Thassa that's not indestructible.
It'll have its effects slowly increase
over time.
Yeah.
As I get more walkers, this effect gets better. Next up is Jace's Archivist. It costs 3 and 2. It costs 3 for a 2/2 Vidalcan Wizard. You pay 1 and tap it. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. So it's a wheel.
Yep, it's a creature too.
It's also a creature. This is the third creature we've seen?
I think so. Third
oh man, that Gideon Champion of Justice getting so big.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait, it's the 4th one. I forgot about the Fairy Rogue that I talked about earlier.
It's a slow workout. He's building up.
Also, you lose a creature when this flips. Next up is Memory Erosion. So remember how I said you don't want to play spells sometimes?
Right.
This is a 3-drop enchantment that says whenever an opponent plays a spell, that player mills 2.
Oh, gosh.
So, have fun chaining all your stuff together after a Cyclonic Rift.
Wow.
chain, 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 chain. Oh, I just milled myself another 10 cards. Great. So now you just milled yourself 80 cards.
Oh gosh.
Because you let me ult a Jace.
I still haven't drawn Gideon Master Trials yet.
Let's be honest, he's probably got milled.
Yeah.
Next up is Laboratory Maniac. It's the Jace Wielder Mystery's Clause. If you would draw a card while you have no deck, you win instead of lose.
Yep.
Next up is also Fraying Sanity. For 2 and a blue, you get an enchantment that's a curse. You pick a player. At the beginning of each end step. Oh, that's each end step. Oh, that's really good. Oh my goodness. At the beginning of each end step, enchanted player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, where X is the number of cards put into that graveyard from anywhere this turn.
Oh god.
So that includes board wipes.
So you're gonna be ruining someone's day if you put that on them.
That includes board wipes. Because it says from anywhere. That includes the field.
Hour of Revelation?
That gets rid of that.
Oh, yeah.
So it would miss the trigger.
Well, that'd be good.
Day of Judgment. Which I know you put in that.
Yep, Day of Judgment.
So, oh, you just blew up someone's creature. You just blew up all the creatures. That person mills that many.
Martial Coup if I pay 5 or more.
Yeah, that'll do it too. Next up is Imaginary Threats. For 2 and 2 blue, you get an instant that says creatures target opponent controls attack this turn if able. During that player's next untap step, creatures he or she controls don't untap. The issue with this is if I play this card, someone's going to be really spiteful and hit me in the face. Because I'm not going to have defense against that.
Yeah.
So this is actually kind of a bad card for me.
It's a double-edged sword.
This is better in a creature-based strategy like the Locust God.
Yeah.
Then, try swinging. I'll just chump it all.
Yeah.
And then everyone else can just beat you to death. So we have Castaway's Despair. It's 3 and a blue to enchant a creature. When it enters, you tap the creature. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its untap step. So, it's a more expensive Claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Not great, but
yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, you want to put that on my Gideons at
I
all.
can't put it on a Gideon. They'll all be off by the time it gets to my turn.
That'd be a good brochure cover there, though, for a vacation.
That's good against some of your other stuff, like anything that could trigger Mentor of the Meek to stop your card draw. Right. That card's pretty good for that.
Yeah,
but
like I said, the art looks like a good vacation brochure.
No, it says despair in the title.
Yeah.
He's in despair.
So is Ixalan. I mean, they have dinosaurs there.
Sure.
It's bad enough there.
Yep. So next up, we have Lay Bare. This is actually a counterspell I didn't know existed, but I really like it. It's 2 and 2 blue to counter target spell, and then you look at its controller's hand.
Looking at the controller's hand would be pretty good just to strategize, but
the only problem is you just used a counterspell for that effect. That's the only issue I have with it, because then it'd be like, oh good, he still has that Gideon of the Trials in hand. Grand. I guess I'll have to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is another creature. 5! We're up to 5!
He's getting stronger by the minute. He just got done doing his push-ups.
Except this guy's already a planeswalker, so. To be fair.
He fumbled on his push-ups then.
Yes.
He pulled a muscle.
Next up is Jace's Projection. For 2 and 2 blue, you get a 2/2 Wizard Illusion. And whenever you draw a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on him. That's pretty good. He can get pretty big.
Yeah.
Then you could pay 3 and a blue to put a loyalty counter and target Jace Planeswalker. Note, it does not say tap on that. You run the Gideon's Company, which does the same thing.
It does, yeah.
But
like Pestilence Demon's effect also. Just keep paying some black for -1/-1, but don't just enough not to kill him though.
Yeah. And this gets harder to kill every time I draw a card. It gets harder and harder to kill. I think this card's pretty good because
Oh,
I can also
yeah.
just pay. If I don't have anything else to do, I can just mana sink mana into this to put loyalty on planeswalkers. Okay, this card feels like a combo piece to me, which is Selective Memory. For 3 and a blue, you get a sorcery that says search your library for any number of non-land cards and exile them. Then shuffle your library.
I don't know really. Would that?
Why is this card good?
Well, you're literally searching your library though for a number of cards though, but then
You exile them.
yeah, but
Oh, I have Jace Wielder of Mysteries on the field. And 4 other Jace Planeswalkers. I'm just going to get rid of the rest of my library except for land. And then mill myself.
oh,
And then draw a card to win.
oh, now I see.
It's a way you can win. It's a really risky play to do that. Selective Memory is one of those cards that can just outright backfire hardcore. So you have to be ready with counter magic when you cast this. You have to make sure that no one is going to interrupt you.
Right.
So stuff like Teferi, Mage of Zolfir would be really good, which I'm not putting in this deck because no one likes that card. To be fair, no one likes that card.
yeah.
And I'm not making this deck super hateful. Just
What?
semi-hateful. Because it's mill.
Like you're at least truthful about it. Semi-hateful.
It is semi-hateful. Mill is a hateful strategy, in my opinion. No one likes it. No one likes decking out.
What about Newmont then?
Land destruction is outright hateful. No one likes land destruction unless you're a monster.
Well, he's trying to reform himself.
No, he is not. He is trying to blow up my land. So next up is Summoner's Bane. It's 2 and 2 blue to counter target creature spell. Already I discussed how I dislike Essence Scatter. This one kind of makes up for it because it gives you a creature. It gives you a 2/2 blue illusion when you do counter. But for 4, that is an expensive counter.
Right.
Just to get a 2/2,
Yeah.
that's not the best. And I already talked about how I dislike Essence Scatter because it's so narrow.
Right.
So this is even more expensive for such a narrow card.
It wouldn't be so bad like those cards if they weren't so narrow, like as long as they have like an additional effect tagged onto them. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see
If you stop an enter the battlefield effect that's going to win a game, I can see this being good.
Right.
It can stop a commander.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big things as to why I would even include it is I can hit a commander anytime it's cast.
Right.
Like Gideon. Which I would never waste this card on Gideon. To be fair. Gideon's not worth it.
He gets insulted. Then
You have to realize that he's probably going to get exiled a lot whenever he's about to flip.
he probably is, yeah. He does not like being insulted. He turned into big Gideon.
So next up is Control Magic. A hateful card. You enchant a creature for 4, and then you control the enchanted creature. I'll just steal Gideon.
Yeah, I know you're not going to be able to flip him at all, really, because...
How do you know? I could create enough illusions to do it.
But why would you, though? Because when he gets exiled, he'll probably...
Yeah, this enchantment falls off, and I'm pretty sure he'd get Gideon back. And I don't really want him having that Gideon. So I would just be there, be like, okay, he'll be a chump blocker for 1 turn. And then he'll die.
No, I'll pay.
You can't pay him if I control it.
Darn.
Yeah, no, it doesn't say if any player can pay this ability cost on
Darn.
that bottom one. It's only the player who controls it.
But would I get Gideon though if he does it?
I'd have to double check rules. You might. Let me read them real quick.
Here you go.
Exile it, then return it under its owner's control. So if I would happen to flip it, it goes back to its owner's control.
Right.
So yes, you would get that back. But I can still your other key pieces to the deck, like Mentor of the Meek. Which I'm going to be able to utilize that because I have a bunch of small stuff, to be fair.
I'll tell you after she when I have a funny idea for Mentor the Meek, though.
Next up is comparative analysis. For 3 and a blue, you get to make target player draw 2 cards. But if you cast another spell, you can pay its surge cost to instead. So you could pay 3 if you've cast another spell this turn. So it's kind of a better divination in a sense. But you have to have something else played already. So it's a more expensive divination at instant speed. So sometimes the surge is not going to be worth playing. Sometimes it'll just be worth drawing the 2 cards. It depends on how much your other spell is worth. Hey, fact or fiction. We've discussed this card a billion times already. You reveal the top 5, person puts them into 2 piles, you pick a pile.
Is that Jace in the picture there?
Absolutely. Next up is Spark Double. This is a new card from War of the Spark, and I love this card. It enters the battlefield as a copy of creature or planeswalker that you control, except it comes in with an additional +1/+1 counter if it's a creature, or comes in with an additional loyalty if it's a planeswalker. And it's not legendary when it copies walkers.
It's also a creature.
If it becomes a planeswalker, it ceases being a creature.
Gotcha.
But it's a copy effect for planeswalkers, which is really important. So, I can make more Jace! Just what I needed, right? More Jaces!
You need Jaces.
You know what's better than 1 Jace the Mind Sculptor? 2 of them! Double Brainstorm.
Oh god.
Then cast a Brainstorm. Triple Brainstorm. Look at 9 cards.
I think I need to tap out of this game. My brain hurts too much now.
I come up with strategies you don't even think about.
No.
Next up is Talent of the Telepath. So what this card does is, for 2 and a 2 blue, target opponent reveals the top 7 cards of their library, and you can cast an instant or sorcery card from among them without paying its mana cost. Then they put the rest in their grave. So essentially you're milling 7 for 4, which is way worse than Mind Sculpt, but you get a free instant or sorcery card out of it. However, if you have Spell Mastery, you get to pick 2 instants or sorceries and cast them for free. So you're essentially getting a lot of value out of this. So, your Gideons are not playing... Your Gideons aren't creatures? Hi there, Hour of Revelation! Yeah, I can steal that. It blows up all my stuff, too, but... It depends on how much I have on the board.
Right.
Depends if I pick that.
Yeah.
Next up is Hedron Archive. 4-drop for a piece of ramp. You get to tap it for 2 colorless, or you can pay 2 and tap it and cash it in for 2 cards. It has Jace in the picture.
Yeah, you're still drawing cards. If you want to sacrifice
In case you can't tell, I like drawing cards.
Yep. Cards.
All the cards. Next up is Jace's Sanctum. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for an enchantment that costs 3 and a blue. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you scry 1. So it gives me card selection. It gives me more card selection because all my instants and sorceries give me, what is it? Card selection.
Is that like on Jace's home plane there?
Yes, this is his Sanctum, probably in Ravnica.
Oh, Ravnica?
Or it might be on Vryn. I don't know. I think it's on Ravnica. It seems like a place in Ravnica. The windows make me think Ravnica in the background.
Yeah, I was better ask about that because... Yeah, sorry.
But next up is Grasping Current. For 4 and a blue, you get to return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hand at sorcery speed. But you also get to search your library and graveyard for Jace and Genius Mind Mage and put it into your hand. So if they've killed it, I can get it back out of the yard. So recursion for 1 Jace. But this card seems really slow to me because it costs 5, which is too weak to just return 2 creatures at sorcery speed. If this was instant, this would be a shoo-in in a heartbeat. Because then, just bounce Gideon. Bounce Gideon.
Wow. Poor Gideons. I know.
I'm picking on Gideons.
I don't care. Yeah. It's helped me point out some weaknesses in this.
Hey there, Sea-Dog. How are you doing today?
Hi.
We are discussing a magic deck, which I am building, and we are also discussing an additional commander deck that has been built by my friend JD here. We are discussing Jace Tribal. And since I know that you missed a lot of this already, I will be uploading this to YouTube and a deck list of the final list, because I have to make about 21 cuts to this deck.
Yeah.
So I will be uploading this to my YouTube channel as well, which you can click in the link below that says YouTube to get to my YouTube page to see anything that you may have missed. Okay, next up is Tamiyo's Journal. You saw me play this already.
Yep.
So at the beginning of my upkeep, I investigate, so I get a token that's a clue, but I could tap it and sacrifice 3 clues to search my library for any card and put it in my hand. So I can dig up a planeswalker, I can dig up literally anything I want out of the deck to get.
I remember when you did that.
Yes, I may have made a Kozilek the Great Distortion deck and ruined someone's face with Tamiyo's Journal.
I remember when he made Roland exile the top 20 cards of his deck was a Ulamog.
Yeah, Ulamog kind of has that effect on people. No one likes Ulamog.
I love him. He's my spirit animal in Rakdos.
That's terrifying. I mean, we all know that my spirit person is probably Jace.
Right.
I just never built a mill deck because I'm like, that's a really mean strategy. But now it's becoming a thing. Oh, he's watching E3 as well.
Oh, nice.
Sweet.
How's that going?
How is E3 going? I don't know what's going on with it right now, but anyways. Next up is Jace's Ruse. This is a 3 and 2 blue to do the same thing as Grasping Current. Return 2 creatures to its owner's hand at sorcery speed. But instead of Ingenious Mind Mage that you get Arcane Strategist. So, and it does dig him out of the grave or library. So I can repeat Jace Arcane Strategist.
Does it say dig him out? Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So that's just basically so that's in the dual deck then, yeah?
Yeah, this is another dual deck card.
Just like
Borderlands 3 hype, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, Borderlands 3?
Yep.
Oh wow.
That's been kind of spoiled for a while.
I don't really go on YouTube much, really.
Yeah. I just knew about it because it popped up on my Facebook. Next up is Jace's Ingenuity. 3 and 2 blue at instant speed to draw 3 cards. That's pretty good. I like drawing cards. He doesn't want me drawing cards. He has something to get his card draw.
Hashtag Gideon Bully. Just joking.
After that we have Mind Control. It's the same thing as Control Magic, except it costs 1 more. Yep. It costs 5 instead of 4. So I can take control of a creature. Next up is Pore Over the Pages. Oh. 3 and 2 blue at sorcery speed to draw 3 cards, untap up to 2 lands, and then discard a card. That does a lot.
Yeah, it does.
That's a pretty good card in my mind. Because it also partially pays for itself, so I can continue doing stuff during my turn.
Right.
Or it keeps up counterspell mana.
Oh yeah, it would.
Because it untaps 2 lands.
Yeah, it untaps 2.
So, that's actually pretty good for me. Ugin's Insight is a card that I'm not really sure about all the time. It seems great, but at the same time, it can really backfire. You pay 3 and 2 blue to scry X, where X is the highest converted mana cost among permanents you control. Then you draw 3 cards. So you would scry X, where X is the biggest thing on your field, or the most expensive card on your field.
Right.
So that could go as high as 10 in this deck because of Omniscience, but that just doesn't seem great.
Well, unless, you control a person's creature, though, and you can probably use that as a...
You would have control over that, but
right.
Really, if we're going to be honest, my deck doesn't go much higher than 6.
Right.
So Arcane Strategist or Jace Ingenious Mind Mage would probably be the 2 big ones that I want to hit with this.
Yeah, because the highest my Gideon deck goes is 7, and that's only just 1 card, really.
Yeah. But let's be fair, I have a 10 drop in the deck that no one likes. Everyone hates it. So we're just not going to discuss that until we get there.
Yep.
Inexorable Tide is the next card. It costs 3 and 2 blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell, proliferate. That's good text, right?
Proliferate.
Proliferating is pretty good text.
Just need one word, proliferate.
I mean, that's pretty good text.
Yep.
I really like that card. I've never had a use for this card, but now I do.
Yep.
So, now we have Evacuation. It's 3 and 2 blue. Return all creatures to their owner's hands. Board wipe.
Yep.
For Gideons. Because it's instant speed.
Yep.
It's unfortunate, but I needed something. Here is, like, one of the kings of the deck. This card is a king, and it's a creature. It is Deep Glow Skate. For 4 and a blue, you get a 3/3 fish. Yes, it's a fish. Don't argue with my fish. The fish states, when it enters the battlefield, double the number of each kind of counter on any number of target permanents. So, I like those loyalty counters. It'd be a shame if I just doubled them.
Oh gosh, do that Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, that's kind of the surprise win.
Or be nice, give it to Gideon's.
It says any number of target permanents, so I could target Gideon's with these. So, I could politic with it.
Yep.
Although, let's be honest here. Am I really going to politic with doubling the counters on something?
Yes, if it depends on which Gideon I have out.
Oh, you mean the one that just gives get all your creatures a buff? Yeah, I'd double that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Then you could get the emblem and they wouldn't die.
Yeah.
Next up is Time Reversal. It is 3 and 2 blue. Each player shuffles his or her graveyard into his or her library, then draws 7 cards, exile Time Reversal. I have this in here kind of as just a reset for me. It's going to be mostly to reset my graveyard into my deck in case something happens and I don't have access to Laboratory Maniac or Jace Wielder of Mysteries or some of my important mill stuff.
Right.
Then I have a chance to actually get it back. And it gets everything back.
It does, yeah.
It does counter my strategy of mill, but it's a thing I could do. Next up is Tamiyo the Moon Sage. What? A non-Jace Planeswalker? This card is really good, and that's the only reason it's in here is how powerful this card actually is. The +1 doesn't seem strong, but it actually really is. The +1 is tap target permanent. It doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Oh, and she costs 5, and she starts at 4 loyalty. But that ability is pretty powerful because it keeps something troublesome tapped down.
It does.
Like, oh, I don't know, maybe a Sanctum of the Sun wouldn't be able to untap. And I wouldn't be able to gain a bajillion mana off my life total. You know, that'd be one purpose for that, but I'm not going to do that to my own Sanctum of the Sun if I ever get that.
If you want to be nice.
No, mostly it's probably just going to be to tap down a Gideon so it can't do anything. It can't punch me in the face.
He doesn't punch often.
Yes, he does. He punches every turn. He has punched many face.
That's why we need to get Sirach in here.
No, he has punched many bear. He has punched many face.
Yeah, I should put that card of him just punching someone in the face.
But, carrying on, we have -2. Draw a card for each tapped creature target player controls. That seems like a pretty good thing. Oh, someone just alpha striked? I'm going to utilize this and draw a billion cards.
Oh, jeez.
And then her -8 is kind of what I would really want to go for with this card, because you get an emblem that says you have no maximum hand size, and whenever a card is put into a graveyard from anywhere, you may return it to your hand.
Wait. Return it?
Return it to your hand. As long as it doesn't exile, it goes back to your hand. Oh, you killed my Jace the Mind Sculptor. It's a shame that it entered the graveyard and went right back to my hand.
Oh, God. And is that an emblem?
That is an emblem.
Wow.
And it gives me no maximum hand size, so I don't have to discard.
That is really good.
That's an extremely powerful emblem. but that is why she gets targeted a lot whenever you play her. So really, the 1-2 punch combo for that would be play Tamiyo, then play Deep Low Skate, and then ult it immediately.
Yeah.
Because she's sitting at 4, and then you would double it to 8. Unless you can chain together 4 spells with an inexertable tide on the field, because people are definitely going to let that live.
Yeah.
Jace's Mind Seeker is next.
Another creature.
It's another critter. It's 4 and 2 blue for 4/4 with flying. Hey, look, another flying thing.
I hate it already.
I know. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent mills 5 cards, and then you can cast an instant or sorcery from among them without paying its mana cost. It's like a small Talent of the Telepath, but you get a 4/4 body attached to it.
Right.
It's also a fish. So apparently my other sub-theme is fish and illusions.
I'm gonna love it when I have Trusted Pegasus out with Gideon Blackblade with the Blackblade. And
You do realize that the Trusted Pegasus has to attack, right? In order for them to fly.
Yeah, so I can just go like, woo, like Sekiro.
Oh, like Mr. Woo guy.
Yeah, Mr. Woo guy, that'd be fun.
Yes. Next up, oh boy. This card. Forced Fruition. Oh boy, this card. 4 and 2 blue. Enchantment. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, that player draws 7 cards. That's like Turbo Mill.
Oh god.
Because, I'm going to chain together a bunch of stuff. Oh good, you just drew 49 cards. Have fun winning. Because now you can't play anything for the rest of the game.
Oh god.
Unless you have an Ulamog that you can discard. Or Kozilek. It doesn't hurt Rakdos as much, but if you cast that... But you literally have to not cast those 2 cards.
Right.
Otherwise, you lose your deck.
Yeah,
It's a double-edged sword. Hardcore. But that's usually why I run those 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to make sure I don't deck myself. Next up is Dig Through Time. It costs 6 and 2 blue at instant speed. You look at the top 7 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom in any order. It also has the Delve mechanic, though. So what Delve means is when each card you exile from your graveyard while casting the spell makes it cost 1 less. So it pays for 1 for each card I exile. So I could potentially cast this on turn 2 if I have 6 cards in my grave. If somehow I got 6 cards in my grave on turn 2.
So that's, what's it called?
Dig Through Time.
Or like the mechanic, is it Devolve?
Delve.
Delve?
Yes. There are a lot of good Delve mechanics.
Huh.
And the next card is going to be something that everyone hates.
At the end of your turn, at the end of my turn, I'm going to be playing Gideon's Intervention for this card. So you can't cast it.
We have Omniscience. It costs 7 and 3 blue. And it says, you may cast non-land cards from your hand without paying their mana costs. And it has Jace in the picture and Jace flavor text.
Hence Gideon's Intervention.
Yes, Gideon's Intervention is really good against this. However, I can just bounce it for 2 with a Cyclonic Rift if I have to, and then cast it. To be fair. Next up is Enter the Infinite, and it's kind of a combo piece with Omniscience, but a 10 mana combo is not great. Or I can just cast this to win, if I have 12 mana.
Right.
Because it costs 8 and 4 blue, and it says, draw cards equal to the number of cards in your library. Then put a card from your hand on top of your library. You have no maximum hand size until your next turn.
No maximum hand size, huh?
Yeah. No max hand size. And it draws my entire deck. So imagine if I had Psychic Corrosion out.
Yeah.
But really, the thing here is I would draw Laboratory Maniac or Jace Wielder of Mysteries.
I think in that instance you want to play Laboratory Maniac.
I'd probably just play the Laboratory Maniac and then draw a card.
Yeah.
Or Jace Wielder of Mysteries. I'd probably try to play them both just to be safe.
Right.
Because then 2 people have to... Because then it's... Someone either has to cast 2 pieces of removal and one's for a Planeswalker, which is hard to do.
Right.
And they have to back it... And they have to worry about me backing it up with counter magic being at the ready.
Right.
Because I have all my cards. or the whole table has to just try to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be multiplayer, and this is going to... And this is a card that, as soon as you do this, people are going to know that you're going to win the game. Okay, so next up is the lands I've selected that are non-basics. We have Blighted Cataract. It taps for a colorless, but I can pay 5 and a blue and tap it and sack it to draw 2 cards.
Good.
It draws me cards.
Yep.
If I don't need the land, it's card draw. It's great. Next up is Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. It's a legendary land. It taps for a colorless, but you can pay 2 and tap it and choose a color. Add to your mana pool an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color.
That would be good.
This is a blue deck,
Yeah.
and I have a lot of blue permanents. So, as long as I have above 3, this pays for itself. If I have 3 blue mana symbols. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries covers that himself.
That'd be good.
Omniscience covers that himself, but at that point you're not worrying about that.
Yeah, that'd be good in Gideon too, then.
Yes, it's good in any monocolor deck. I only own one, so don't ask me to trade it. Because it's going in this deck. Next up is Mage Ring Network. It taps for a colorless, but I can pay 1 and tap it to put a storage counter on this. So all that proliferate makes this worth it. Because then I can tap it and remove X storage counters from it to add X colorless to my mana pool. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Next up is Karn's Bastion. It taps for a colorless, but I can pay 4 and tap it to proliferate.
That's a good one.
That's a great card.
It is. I have that in Gideon too.
Next up is Drownyard Temple. It taps for a colorless, but I can pay 3 and return it from the grave to the battlefield tapped. So if someone blows up non-basics, which I'm not going to be running too many of, and they hit this, I can just get it back. And it doesn't specify at what speed, so it's at instant speed. So I can just be like, okay, at the end of your turn, I'm getting my Drownyard Temple back.
Yeah.
The only reason it's in here is it has Jace Flavor Text. It's the only reason it's in there.
Right.
The other ones are just kind of good lands to have.
Oh, yeah.
Temple of the False God. It taps for 2 if you have 5 or more lands. That's pretty good. Next up is Reliquary Tower. No max hand size. Yep. Seems pretty good for this deck.
Yeah, it seems really good.
And then I'm going to be running 30 islands for this. Because I need islands to make the deck run. There are some lands that I did miss, and I might change the land base a little later, but it's not something that's super important because it's a monocolor deck.
Right.
Okay. I have to make a bunch of cuts now.
Yep, you do.
This is the hard part of this.
Okay, get the hot knife out.
Hot knife. So,
we gotta make sure they're...
I'm gonna just be searching through stuff, finding things that don't really go great for my strategy.
Right.
Like, Psychic Rebuttal is a card that I'm really on the fence about, just because it has to target me. Cards like that, I can just redirect. Because that's just outright better.
I mean, no one, our player base really, I think that's...
Not a great card.
No.
So I'm going to cut that. Only 20 more to go. Dramatic Reversal, I already made comments about how it's not great in this deck because I don't run a lot of mono rocks.
I'd say...
And I'm going to be drawing enough cards.
I'd say it's worth cutting that.
Yeah. Let's see here. Essence Scatter was one of those cards that I said was super narrow, but I always know at least one card, but I'm going to set it aside in case I don't have anything else to cut.
Yeah, in my opinion, like, it would be good if, like, you know, they had, like, something tacked onto it also, you know?
Yeah. Like, Exclude has counter target creature spell, draw a card.
I mean, like, was it Summoner's Bane, or?
Summoner's Bane.
I mean, sure, it's cost 4, but at least you're still getting something out of it, though, even though you're targeting that very niche.
Yes. Very niche thing.
Yeah.
Contingency Plan was excellent. Praying Sanity. This card can either do nothing or can do a lot. Right. Because stuff has to enter their grave. Oh. I could put this on Muldrotha and super mill them out.
Oh.
Because they already want stuff to go to their bin.
Right.
They'll think it's card draw.
Yeah,
Because then I could just help assist them with a little bit more mill. And then a little bit more. And then it's going to speed up really quick.
Then before it hits them, boom.
Yes, so that's actually a pretty good card.
Because my comment I was going to make is like, it might just get hated off the board though too, you never know.
That player will hate you for doing that. For putting a curse on any player, they hold a grudge, is my general experience with this.
Yep.
But it might be worth it if I can just start turbo milling them.
Right.
Laboratory Maniac has to stay in. Outright.
Yeah. No, he has to be cut.
No, he has to stay in. Memory Erosion needs to stay in. Jace's Archivist is really good. Trail of Evidence is a card that I'm kind of not sure about. It does give me something to do with my mana on my turns that I don't have instance. But a lot of times I probably should have instance.
Right. But then is it worth it, like, just to pay the 2 mana for it to...
This is the mana sink, is the
Right.
thing. Is if I'm getting flooded, and Trail of Evidence has gotten me a bunch of stuff. Oh, they just showed Halo on that, and it looks good.
Oh, nice. I'm a big Halo fan too.
Yeah. Now, things like this. Look at 4, get instants or sorceries. At 3 mana, that's not great.
I'd
probably
you
cut
have
that.
You have a stronger version of it anyways, really. So
Yes, and it was at 2 mana.
I'd say, yeah, that's a good cut there.
Jace's Triumph, it's gotta stay. Has his face on it.
Yeah, just like Gideon's Triumph, yeah.
No Escape, I did say that it was a very narrow card, but it's less narrow,
Right.
and it has a lot of utility as well.
Yeah, stuff tacked on, like I said, yeah.
Yes. Having stuff tacked on is pretty good. Space's Tutor's gotta stay.
That's gotta stay in there too. Pieces of the puzzle.
This digs one deeper than that, and push the rest in the grave.
Yeah.
But it is still on the cutting block because it's 3 mana at sorcery speed. That's my big beef with it, is it costs 3 for that effect. And you can only grab instants or sorceries.
Right.
And otherwise the rest of that stuff's going away.
That's gotta...
No, that's staying.
Okay,
I'm going to put this on the chopping block. It's Induced Amnesia because I don't know if I'm going to be able to abuse it. I want to be able to abuse this card.
I think it depends on like who you're actually playing though too, really.
It doesn't. It depends if I can bounce it. That's how I was looking at this card. I was looking at it as a mill option, and if I could bounce it back to my hand. Because if it goes back to hand, they don't get their cards back. Right. And I essentially just milled them for their hand size.
Of course, this could like be like say that we have multiple people here, and you cast on someone, like if you tell them, like, if it gets exiled, though that hand size gets exiled too. So like someone might want to, how should I say?
They'll try to politic and play around it.
Right.
It forces people to play around it. That's why it's only on the cutting block. Because
like,
I'm going to see if I can abuse it.
Get the third party to exile it for you. Exile it so like that person will lose it. That's like my thinking there, kind of.
And the other thing is if I hit someone with Reliquary Tower, a Reliquary Tower hand that has 15 cards, I exile 15 of their cards. That's not an insignificant amount of cards to exile. But they will hate you for the rest of the game unless they draw an answer to it.
So this could draw some...
And then if they draw the answer, they get their 15 cards back. And then they have a hand size of 30.
Yeah, and then...
That's the backfire there.
I think, that might not be worth keeping it then, really.
And I'd have to literally counter enchantment removal.
Right.
And I don't want to be countering enchantment removal.
Right.
Jace's Sanctum makes my instants and sorceries cheaper. That's great. Ramp, that's great. This mills 7 and allows me to cast 2 things. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Spark Double's pretty good.
Yeah.
Factor Fiction, huh? I like it. It's instant speed. I like anything that says instant on it.
Right.
That's why I put pieces of the puzzle and uncovered clues in this pile, is because they're sorceries. I want to be doing stuff during my opponent's turns. I don't want to be doing it during mine. That's not who I am. Everyone knows I play instants. I love instant speed cards. Comparative analysis, we don't need... Well...
I'm going to put it here, yeah.
It's in the maybe pile. Control magic.
That will be useful, yeah.
Normally, I would say that it would be useful.
But it's like...
But I'm not going for creature-based strategies is the thing.
But you can use it to have a blocker, though, too.
Yes, I can use it to steal a blocker.
That's why I say you gotta keep it.
That's pretty good.
I'd say, like...
Summoner's Bane is going in the maybe.
I don't
It does create a blocker, but it's 4.
Right.
I don't want to have to hold 4 mana open just to counter a creature. Because that's extremely narrow. Okay, you're going to think I'm odd for this choice. But I'm going to put Selective Memory in that maybe pile. Because there's so much risk with this.
Right.
The risk versus reward factor makes this a tough card to determine if I'm going to use it or not.
Right.
Oh, Jace's Protection has to stay. Absolutely has to. That ability to just draw cards and get big.
Yeah.
Whew. And putting Loyalty on Jace Planeswalkers is pretty good. Lay Bare is an excellent counterspell. Castaway's Despair is too slow.
Yep.
Imaginary Threats, I have discussed why I don't like this card. I don't have creatures to block with, and people are going to be mad when I force them to attack.
Yep.
Tameo the Moon Sage. Staying in there. Because there's a chance I could just wombo combo with it. Okay. We got Time Reversal. The thing is, do I want to be resetting everyone's graves?
I'd say
that's the tough part.
This might be counterintuitive what you really want to do.
It is It's exactly counterintuitive to what I want to be doing. Because it resets everyone's graves. I'm putting it in the maybe because it gets me stuff back.
Right.
And that's the only reason I need it.
But you're also giving your opponents their stuff back too is the thing.
Yes. And if I really need this ability, I have it on a Planeswalker in the form of Jace the Living Guild Pact.
It's basically...
And it's better when I do it on him.
Right. So I'd say
probably... I'm going to put it in the maybe.
Okay.
But it's very leaning heavily on the no.
Yeah, for my...
Oh, would you look at that Deep Glow Skate? Don't you wish you were running blue for this?
I guess I'm going to have to go fishing.
You're going to have to try to fish for those compliments. To see if I'll do anything along those lines.
Get the scuba gear out. We're hunting.
Oh, no. You were not hunting that. Because you have to realize, it has to enter the battlefield. You running counters? No. You running counter magic?
No.
You're not running that Lapse of Certainty. The only no... Actually, there's a few white counter spells. However, Monotithe is terrible. You have a great day, Sea Dog Productions. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
I have. Yep.
Okay, Evacuation. I have to have board wipes. I cannot run this deck without them. Inexorable Tide is excellent. It's doing everything I want. I'm going to put this in the maybe, which is Ugin's Insight. Pour Over the Pages is a great card, and I love it. It does make me discard a card, which Ugin's Insight does not do, but it untaps 2 lands.
Right.
So it gives me counter magic back. Mind Control. Pretty good card.
That is like, would it be, is it kind of like how should I say, the mana for it too big, or you think, or...
I'll steal an Ulamog for 5. You cast it for 10. Great job. Now you get to suffer the Annihilator.
Would you do that to me?
Yes. You have to ask me that?
Yes. Because I thought I could politic.
You might be able to politic. It depends on what else is on the field.
Take control of his Locust God. You can be...
You know, that's actually not a bad plan.
Oh, no.
Because then I'm drawing enough cards to utilize it.
And then you have you have blockers.
And then I can just mill him out.
Then you have blockers for days.
Exactly. I just need it for a second. So that I can just mill someone. And then I'll draw enough cards to make sure I have enough blockers.
What have I done?
You see, you give me good ideas. And terrible ideas for you.
Roland, get ready for your end days.
This deck already spells end days for that deck.
It does.
But anyways, Jace's Ingenuity, 5 mana to draw 3 cards. That seems expensive, but I would pay a steeper price for that. Okay. I know this can dig up a walker, one of my planeswalkers, Jace's Ruse, and Grasping Currents. We're just going to grab both of these right now. I'm putting them in the maybe because although they do get me planeswalkers and they can bring them back, they only grab my mediocre planeswalkers. And they bounce 2 creatures, but really they're just going to recast them the next turn.
And yeah, like you said,
it's at sorcery speed. If these were instant speed cards, I would play them.
Right. But
even if they cost 6, I would play them. If they were not sorcery. The sorcery speed makes it seem really bad to me. Tamiyo's Journal. That seems... I'm going to put it in the maybe pile. And the reason why is if I run Tamiyo's Journal, I'm going to want to run Trail of Evidence with it.
Right.
Because then for every instant or sorcery I cast, it's getting me even closer to being able to tutor for a card.
Right.
So if I run these, I'm running them as a pair. Force Fruition. That's staying. Jace's Mindseeker. I need creatures at this point. I don't think I've cut any creatures so far. Okay. Dig Through Time. It can potentially be 2. I'm going to be exiling cards to do it. That's a problem.
That is.
Now I need to keep an eye on how many cards I've laid down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And even after this, I still have to make 3 more cuts.
Right.
So I'm putting this in the maybe because the card selection is nice and it lets me get anything out and it doesn't get rid of it.
Right.
But exiling cards out of my grave is going to be an issue. Because I'm going to be able to reutilize some of this stuff. Okay. Omniscience and Enter the Infinite. If I'm running one of them, I should probably run both. Because it's an instant win combo. But do I want to be able to instantly win?
You probably would be just to get it over with, really.
Yeah. I guess it could be like what Colin does and... Oh, I'm getting tired of this game. Instant win. Mm-hmm. This game needs to end. Instant win.
Yep.
So, the rest of this stuff was land. So, now we needed to find the worst of the best. I actually really like the Fact or Fiction effects, but putting stuff into my grave is going to be very counterintuitive to what I'm trying to do.
Right.
So, the Fact or Fiction stuff might actually get the axe. But then I have to look at the rest of my cards real quick. Because I have to make sure I'm still able to cast
of course,
stuff.
It depends on, like, how your opponents stack
If you have an ally, they're going to be more likely to give you good stuff. And they'll even sometimes be like, okay, all of them are going in one pile. The rest is going into nothing. I've seen people do that. Like if they were close friends, they'll just be like, okay, you get all these cards.
Oh.
Here's your piles. All 5 in one, 0 in the other. Which pile are you going to take? I've seen that off of Fact or Fiction. And it's actually kind of dumb to do that.
Because I'd say like you'd at least have to have one card in one pile, you know?
I wish it had restrictive text like that. But it doesn't. Okay. So, Epiphany at the Drown Yard. I feel I could dig way too deep with this. And I'd be getting rid of a bunch of stuff. I wouldn't want to dig it. This is worse than Fact or Fiction. Because it gives you that many +1. So I'd have to pay 4 in a blue just to get Fact or Fiction level.
Right.
And that's about all I'd want to pay for this. And paying 5 for Fact or Fiction just doesn't seem great. Okay. So now we have Soul Ring. Need that. Absolute must. Clash of Wills. It's going to stop them for a turn. It's not great, but I need to check to see how much other counter magic I'm running. So I think I need about 5 counter spells in here.
Yep.
So
I'd say get rid of those niche ones then.
Counter target instant is actually powerful. There's a lot of instants, and a lot of people play them.
Yep.
Oh, I'm going to path. I'm going to dispel your path. I want that troublesome creature to stay around because it's helping me. Jace's Phantasm. It's a 5-drop for 1. That seems good.
Yeah, it is. I would say don't cut any of your creatures, really.
I can't really afford to cut any of my creatures because I run so few. Mystical Tutor is so strong that I cannot afford to cut it.
Right.
Brainstorm.
Good.
Powerful. It synergizes with every single mill spell I run. So good. Drown Secrets is one of my mill strats. Cyclonic Rift. I can cut that now.
Yep. Oh, no.
Sapphire Medallion gets me such huge benefits.
It does.
Sky Diamond seems slow, but it's worth it. It's ramp.
It is.
Especially if I turn 1 Soul Ring into Sky Diamond. Then I've hit, 5 mana on turn 2?
Yep, you have.
That's ridiculous. Redirect was a better Psychic Rebuttal.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. And I don't have to worry about the restrictive mana cost of 2 blue because I'm a mono blue deck.
Right.
Send to Sleep. It can tap 2 creatures at instant speed, and they cannot untap if I have 2 or more instants or sorceries in my grave.
Keep that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Mind Sculpt, mill 7 for sorcery. That seems kind of weak compared to the rest of my enchantments doing work.
It does, yeah. I'd say put that on the maybe then.
Yeah, put it in the maybe. So, how many do I have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 20. So I still have to cut 1 more card. Proliferate and draw a card. That seems pretty good for just 2.
Right.
Wish it was instant, though. That's the only gripe I have with this sorcery. Jace's Erasure. It's a mill card. I need it. Look at the top 3. Put 1 of them into your hand and the rest into your grave.
That should be on the maybe there because you're still putting stuff into your graveyard, really.
Yeah, and I don't really want to be putting a bunch of stuff into my grave. Especially since my recursion is just for instants and sorceries. I'll put that in maybe. So it seems like the deck is going to be slow at the beginning.
Yeah.
And that would actually be the number of cuts, but I'm going to take another quick glance through here.
Yep.
This says I could put any number into the grave. So this is just card selection for me to put into the grave.
Right.
So I get to pick what I want. That's actually extremely powerful in contingency plan. Counterspell is excellent. Negate is excellent. Fraying Sanity. That card can still make someone really, really mad. But most of my mill is going to be targeting 1 person anyways.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how mad they are.
They're gonna, yeah.
I'll just make them even more mad, and they'll attack me. And then I'll have to defend. Memory Erosion forces everyone to mill. That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Jace's Archivist. It's a creature. It's a wheel.
The wheel.
This works great with Psychic Corrosion. Oh, you discarded 15 cards. Everyone mills for 30.
Joke.
Oath of Jace.
You have to have that still.
You kind of can't run a Jace deck without the Oath.
Right.
Psychic Corrosion. I just mentioned this card. This card is excellent.
Take it out.
No! Jace's Triumph. Draw 3 cards for 3. No Escape. Kind of narrow, but really it's not. Because I do know it, and it has a bunch of extra benefits.
Right.
Sphinx's Tutelage is really good. Guild Pact Informant. The only reason I'd say possibly take this out is it has to attack.
It does.
And it's a 1/1. But I need Proliferate. Jace's Sanctum. 4 for this effect seems kind of slow. Because if I cast it on curve, it's a do-nothing enchantment.
I'd say maybe add that to the maybe.
This is kind of just stuff that I'm looking for to potentially get stuff like Selective Memory, Tamio's Journal, and Trail of Evidence back. But the reduction in instance and sorcery cost is powerful. That's the big reason why it's in here.
Is it going to be too slow, though, you'd think? Or
it depends on when I get it.
Right.
If I draw it early, yeah, it's going to be pretty slow. If I don't get it early, it's going to be pretty good. It's a late game card, so question mark on that. Hedron Archive. Gotta keep it. Stuff like Talent of the Telepath is going to be odd. Because if I put Mind Sculpt in there, then I shouldn't really be running this.
Right.
Because it's going to be milling 7 for double the price, but I do get to cast instants and sorceries with it. But you also have to consider how many people are going to be running creature-based strategies. If I hit a creature-based strategy with this, and I'm only playing against creature-based strategies, then this is almost a dead draw. Because you're going to be milling someone for 7.
Right.
For 4. Which isn't great.
Keep it, I think.
I think keep it for now and test it.
Yeah.
Hey, look, the Fact or Fiction. We know how I feel about it. I love Fact or Fiction, but people are going to be getting rid of all the stuff I need.
I'd say maybe I'd say take it out for now and see.
I'll put it in this maybe pile
Yeah.
of what could I cut for potentially these 3 cards. Because Selective Memory is high risk, high reward. This seems like a card that, if I'm ahead, it's excellent.
Yeah.
Control Magic. That seems pretty good. Lay Bare, Tameo, Deep Close Gate, Evacuation, Pour Over the Pages. Jace's Ingenuity. Forced Fruition. But then again, if you consider Fact or Fiction and Talent of the Telepath, Jace's Mindseeker would also need to come out. But I really can't afford to cut a creature, so it's unfortunate. I love Jace's Mindseeker, though. It's a fishy fish.
I guess go fishing.
Okay. The only other card I could see... How many counter spells am I running? 1, 2... 3... 4, 5... 6... 7. I'm running 7 counterspells. I could even cut a single counterspell, to be honest. Just run 6. And then I could get more card draw.
Yeah, that'd probably be worth it just to get more card draw.
I'm going to cut Clash of Wills. Because although Clash of Wills is that card that would force someone to delay a turn,
right,
it's not winning me the game.
It's just really delaying them.
It's delaying them, and they're going to be mad that you did it. So really, Tameo's Journal, I think I want. Because tutoring up a card is powerful.
Yep.
That was my reasoning on this.
And better have a Trial of Evidence.
Trail of Evidence is really good. And then Selective Memory. Do I want that, or do I want Jace's Sanctum? Because Jace's Sanctum gets me a huge discount. And also, don't even suggest cutting any of the Jaces.
I wasn't.
Because they're all going in there. Despite how bad some of them are in the deck.
I'd go for the high risk, high reward one, maybe.
Yeah. Selective Memory, huh?
Because I could see that being useful if you have Laboratory Maniac or...
It would be. It's a niche card, but... And I have to have the board set up already. But I think I can make it work. It's a card I'm going to test, and if it doesn't test well, then Jace's Sanctum is better.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay. so we're up to 21 cuts. I'm going to double check to make sure my math is right, because this is 11. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63. And I had 37 lands.
Perfect.
So that makes even 100. Okay, so now I have the deck put together. And I did sleeve up all these guys because Jace the Mind Sculptor, pretty expensive card, for those who don't know. So I did cut some pretty powerful stuff, and I cut some pretty weak stuff. Like, Dig Through Time is an extremely powerful card, but I don't ever see myself casting it for 8.
Right.
And it's better in other strategies. It'd be better in something like a Dragonlord Ojutai deck that's not going to be utilizing the graveyard.
Right.
Because I have a chance to utilize the grave. Although, someone once told me that if you're not utilizing your graveyard, you're playing the game wrong. Because you should use every resource available.
Right. And
the graveyard is a resource. So when you see stuff that get exiled, then you're like, ugh.
Yeah, like my Primordial helps me out with that too, yeah.
So, we've already discussed some of the general strategies of this deck, but it's going to be milling, it's going to be drawing me a lot of cards, so I'm going to have card advantage, and I'm going to have to be a pretty controlling deck. It's going to be tough against creature strategies because I don't have a lot of board wipes to rely on. Because I think I run 2.
Right.
Which is Cyclonic Rift and Evacuation. So I'm also going to have to be very political with this and be like, if you don't hit me, I'm not going to be milling you unless it's unintentional mill.
Right.
So I could make a pact with the person I know who's going to have a strong creature package. Like Azuri, Claw of Progress. A deck like that would ruin this. And I'd have to find a way to deal with them later, but then I'd have the ability to draw a board wipe by then.
Right.
Or I just have to start with one in hand. Just in case they turn their back on me and swing at me. Because I'm doing something that they don't approve of.
Right.
So, those are the general strategies for this particular deck. But let's go ahead and talk about that Gideon deck over there that's been sitting around.
Dun, dun.
And I've been picking on this entire time. So we have Gideon, Hero of Akros. We're not going to be reading all the cards.
That's fine.
Probably. Because we don't really have time for that.
That's fine.
Because how long has this been going on? I think the stream's been going on for like 2 hours. Yeah, about 2 hours. So what Gideon does is he's one of the planeswalkers that starts as a creature. He is a 2/1 for 1, and at the end of combat, if Gideon, Hero of Akros, and at least 2 other creatures attacked this combat, you exile him and return him transformed under its owner's control, and you can pay 2 and a white to make him indestructible, so he can survive combat. But he flips into Gideon Battleforged. He starts at 3 loyalty, and his +2 is up to 1 target creature an opponent controls attacks Gideon Battleforged during its controller's next turn if able. That's actually a very powerful effect, especially against my deck. Because, right. You have to swing with Laboratory Maniac.
Yep.
So it makes it so that I can't really afford to play it when I want to. And this is his commander, so I'm going to have problems with that ability. +1, up until your next turn, target creature gains indestructible. Untap that creature. If only there were a way for you to activate multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
There is actually ways of doing that, but... And then his 0 is, until end of turn, Gideon becomes a 4/4 human soldier with indestructible that's still a planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. So we're just going to go ahead and discuss the key cards in his deck. And also, you might consider not using a top loader because you're going to have to pull this out every time.
Right.
Unless you have a piece of paper that has the other Gideon on it.
Yeah, I might.
You might. So that's just a thought for the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just keep them protected. Really.
So we're going to discuss the Gideons.
Yes, which Gideon you want to start out with?
We'll just go next. we'll just grab Gideon Jura.
Yep.
Gideon Jura is 3 and 2 white. He starts at 6, +2. During target opponent's next turn, creatures that player controls attack Gideon Jura if able. So it's single targeting someone to attack this Gideon, so that he can swing in afterwards. -2 is destroy target tapped creature, in case for some reason he survives. And then his 0 is, until end of turn, Gideon Jura becomes a 6/6 human soldier creature that's still a planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. His biggest problem is he does not have indestructible.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you turn him into a creature, he's susceptible to creature removal.
Right.
Which is the biggest issue with him.
Which it's weird, though,
all of his other ones, they realized that after they made him, because he was the first variant. And after they made him, they were like, oh, he's not indestructible, and he's just dying to creature removal.
Just like Gideon Oathsworn, it makes no sense, really.
Yeah. This one makes no sense as to why they did that.
Right.
But with Gideon Champion of Justice, his second variant, they changed that. So he starts at 4, and he costs 2 and a white. His +1 is put a loyalty counter on him for each creature target opponent controls, which is why we were joking about that. Because I don't run a lot of creatures, so I'm not the target for that. Hardly ever. 0, he turns into a creature with power and toughness equal to the number of loyalty on him. He's still a planeswalker, prevent all damage that be dealt to him. He is also indestructible. And then his -15 is exile all other permanents.
That includes lands.
Yes, it includes all lands.
And Gideon the Oathsworn.
Next is Gideon Oathsworn. He's one of the dual deck ones. For 4 and 2 white, he starts at 4 loyalty. Whenever you attack, he has a passive. Whenever you attack with 2 or more non-Gideon creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures. So he benefits a creature-based strategy. So we're already discussing a creature-based strategy. +2, he becomes a 5/5 that prevents all damage. He does not become indestructible, which makes no sense. And then his -9 is exile Gideon the Oathsworn and each creature your opponents control. So he gets rid of creatures on his ult. And himself.
Then Gideon Marshall Paragon.
Yes. Go ahead and read these.
5 cost. He starts out with 5 loyalty. His +2 is untap all creatures you control. Those creatures get +1/+1 until the end of turn. His +0 is, until the end of turn, Gideon Marshall Paragon becomes a 5/5 human soldier with indestructible that's still a planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. Then his -10 is, creatures you control get +2/+2 until the end of turn. Tap all creatures your opponents control. I mean, he's a dual deck one, so...
Those are actually some pretty powerful effects for a dual deck one. Untap all creatures you control. That gets around Tamiyo.
It does? Because
you wouldn't be able to attack with this one.
Right.
But let's say I tapped the one that you needed. Like the best one. Like Champion of Justice. He had 10 loyalty, so he'd be a 10/10. I tap him down. You turn him into a creature, play him, untap him. He can attack that turn, because he's been around.
Right.
So that's actually a pretty powerful effect. And then giving an Alpha Strike with a buff is always powerful.
Next up, Gideon Ally of Zendikar. He's a 4 cost, starts with a 4 loyalty. Until the end of turn, Gideon Ally of Zendikar becomes a 5/5 human soldier ally with indestructible. His 0 is put a 2/2 white knight ally creature token onto the battlefield. His -4 is, you get an emblem with creatures you control get +1/+1. He is one of the stronger Gideons.
Yes, just being able to emblem right out of the gate is pretty powerful. I wouldn't recommend it in this deck.
Right.
Because you want him to stick around for a little bit. So he won't be able to attack the turn he comes in, because all of Gideons do suffer from summoning sickness. But
I can still use this.
you can make a dude.
Yeah, that's the one thing I do like, is like you +1 him and he turns into a...
His plus is his creature form, which is kind of an odd ability, because the rest of them all have it on 0. except for Gideon Blackblade. But we'll discuss him last.
Yep.
Because he's new.
Next up, Gideon of the Trials.
Oh boy.
He's a 3-cost.
His favorite.
He is my favorite. He starts with 3 loyalty, +1. Until your next turn, prevent all damage target permanent would deal. And so that means I could just say, hey, your Ulamog ain't gonna do is gonna do 0 damage, but I'm still gonna mill.
Yeah, you'll still get hit for the 20, or you'll still get the Annihilator.
I was talking about yeah, it depends.
It depends on which one you hit.
Yeah. Then
But just being able to negate 10 damage is pretty good.
Oh yeah. His zeros until the end of turn. Gideon of the Trials becomes a 4/4 human soldier with indestructible. Then his 0.
His other 0. This is the one. Those 2 other abilities are kind of irrelevant until this other 0 is used.
You get an emblem with, as long as you control a Gideon Planeswalker, you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game.
So literally we have to sit there and grind down every single Gideon into pulp before we can do anything. Otherwise he has to blow them all up himself with something, which he's not dumb enough to do. To be fair, you wouldn't do that.
Right. He was my favorite one. Next up, Gideon Blackblade. 3 for 4 loyalty, and he comes in as at the beginning of my turn, he becomes a automatic creature, a 4/4 human soldier with indestructible. His +1 is up to one or other target creature you control gains your choice of vigilance, lifelink, or indestructible until the end of turn. His -6 is exile target non-land permanent.
Yes. And those are really the big cards in his deck. Otherwise, it is a Soldier Tribal deck. But some of the key things that we have to note about Soldier Tribal is Soldier Tribal does have a lot of synergies with it, such as Mentor of the Meek can really be a good draw engine for it.
Right.
However, it's just 1 card, and you need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
The running joke with this deck is equip Gideon Blackblade with Blackblade Reforged. So he's dual-wielding Blackblades.
With Trusted Pegasus.
With the Trusted Pegasus.
So I can go, woo!
So then he's a giant flying Gideon monster.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait.
Yeah. But his deck is running a lot of more tutors than mine, because white is the color of Planeswalker tutors. So he has stuff like Call the Gatewatch, Deploy the Gatewatch, which allows him to tutor up stuff. He's running Thalia's Lancers, so he can dig up legendary permanents from his deck. That's really important for your deck, since you're not going to have as good a card draw as I am. I'm going to have good card selection, but I'm not going to have the ability to get my Planeswalkers out of my deck.
Right.
I'm going to have access to 1 at all times. You're going to have access to a lot more, just because you're going to be able to dig them up.
Right.
He's also running the Gideon's Company, which is the equivalent of Jace's Projection. It's a soldier that I don't remember what its other ability is, but he can pay 4 to put a loyalty on a Gideon Planeswalker. I think it's a 4-drop.
It's a 4-drop.
It's whenever you gain life, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Gideon's Company.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of life gain in here, but Blackblade can give it.
Yeah, because I can give
something lifelink.
Yeah. Which I'd probably be giving like something. Yeah, I'd probably try to like give Trusted Pegasus or
give Gideon lifelink.
That is true. I can give him lifelink. Then
it says any other creature other than him.
Yeah, then.
So just give another Gideon lifelink. They're your beaters.
Right. Then like make a special mention out to Baird.
Baird is one of the Dominaria cards that I actually really like. He's a prison effect that says creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. So basically what that's going to be doing is it's going to be preventing people from hitting Gideon.
Right.
Unless they pay mana.
Which I know sometimes the way people in our group play, like they'll usually just tap themselves out. Like
a lot of times, a lot of our play group taps themselves out in main phase 1, so then they don't leave any mana open. I usually am not one of those people, and I play during main phase 2. Because you get 2 main phases, utilize the second one after combat, so you have mana open for combat tricks. Or for board wipes, in case you have to board wipe during your combat for some reason. Like you're about to lose something important.
Yeah.
But Bayard is actually a really good card for your deck. And he's a soldier, so he fits the sub-theme.
Thought I'd make a special mention to...
Let me look through all this stuff real quick, and I'll see if I can find any other special mentions. He's running the good creature removal of Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares, because why would you not?
The Black Blade itself.
We've already mentioned the Black Blade, because we have to double equip the Black Blade.
Yep.
He's running Stoneforge Masterwork, which gives it's an equipment for 1 and equips for 2. Each equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control that shares a creature type with it. So, because it's soldier tribal, he can make a Gideon really, really big. Or he can make his Kithion really, really big. And deal commander damage.
I think the armor would be too big for him.
I made sure that he had a good, sufficient Mentor of the Meek package, because Mentor of the Meek is probably going to be his primary form of card draw.
I got thinking, like, yeah, I can put lifelink on my stuff because of freaking Frontline Medic in there, too.
Frontline Medic doesn't give lifelink. He gives Indestructible.
That's what I meant, like, give stuff lifelink because he gives Indestructible out.
Oh, yes. So then he just has a bunch of soldiers that, for a good soldier theme. He runs Urza's Incubator to make his soldiers cheaper, which is a really good card. Everyone loves that. Thalia, Heretic Cathar is pretty powerful. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped.
Yep.
It's a good card. Mentor, he actually has a small +1/+1 counter package in the deck, and Mentor is actually a good mechanic for that. Although it's a bit slow, he can make his stuff bigger over time. Otherwise, yeah, he just focuses on making a bunch of dudes. He has creature buff, because that's what white's good for. He has combat tricks. He's good at blowing up big creatures, so unfortunately I don't run a lot of those. Although most of your removal hits my Jace's Mindseeker.
Yeah.
And probably the projection, but I'll be more likely to protect that projection than I will the Mindseeker.
Right.
Let's see here. 2 drops. He's got Lightning Greaves for his creatures. He's got Mirror of the Forebearers. He's got a lot of combat-oriented removal. So it's not going to be as useful against Jace's Planeswalker deck.
Right.
But it's still pretty good removal. Day of Judgment for removal. He actually has a really neat combat trick in the form of Give No Ground. And I actually really like this card. It's 3 and a white for an instant. And it says, target creature gets +2/+6 until end of turn and can block any number of creatures this turn. The reason this card is so interesting to me is he runs Gideon Jura, which forces one of his opponents to attack him. So he can probably just alpha strike them out on his next turn if he can get them to hit that Gideon. Otherwise, you can save that Gideon and lose a weaker creature with Give No Ground. It's an interesting combat trick, but it's a one-of combat trick. Because I know that you don't have any recursion in the deck for instants and sorceries at the very least. Audric, Master Tactician, does what Kithion wants him to do. It wants to attack with a bunch of creatures, and he gets to determine how they block, which is pretty important. So he could literally just remove troublesome pieces and be like, oh, yeah, this blocks.
Yeah, this is going to be blocking my Gideon Blackblade. It's going to die.
Yep. Like an Oracle of Moldiah, something that you wouldn't normally block with. And you can just be like, yeah, you're blocking with that, and you're not blocking with anything else.
Of course, like, I can say, like, that doesn't block at all. To get through.
So Audric is actually a card that you have to be aware of all the time. Gideon's Intervention is a Nevermore on a Gideon card. No one likes Gideon's Intervention because it's a Nevermore.
Good.
However, it's a better Nevermore because it also prevents all damage that would be dealt to you and permanents you control by sources with the chosen name. So, really what's happening with this card is he can prevent something from being cast at all, so he can just name someone's commander as a card. Otherwise, if it's already out, he can just prevent damage with this. To him and permanents he controls. So he can politically be like, hey, I'm going to choose your creature for this, so you can't hit me. Period.
Right, but what about if it generates tokens? Like, do the tokens will still...
The tokens can still hit.
Gotcha.
Because they're separate entities.
Yeah.
Daru Warchief is an important card because it makes his soldiers cheaper and buffs them. That's pretty important. There's a slight tap theme going on. Heliod, God of the Sun, is in the deck because, if anything, he's a monosync. You can make 2/1s that have vigilance. He's pretty good, too. I really like Heliod as a card. He's running the Wanderer, which is a really neat card. It prevents all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and other permanents you control. So stuff like Burn just doesn't work on you anymore.
Right.
And it doesn't work on your planeswalkers either. So direct damage doesn't work. And then it can exile creatures with power 4 or greater, which is actually a really important clause. Let's see here. Your 5-drops. Board wipes. End hostilities is actually a really great board wipe in my opinion, because Voltron strategies are kind of powerful. If they have equipment, it blows up the equipment too. That's really good.
Yeah.
It's something you don't think about. It's little things like that that you don't really think about until it happens. Like, oh, you just wiped the board of this person's one creature with all this equipment. All that equipment just gone.
Yeah.
All the Sword of effects are gone. Cleansing Nova is actually one of my favorite board wipes because it gives you an option of creatures or all artifacts and enchantments. Oh no, you have 2 board wipes to deal with my enchantments. Dang it.
Here you go.
6 drops. Deploy the Gatewatch. I've already discussed that. He runs Sun Titan because most of his deck is low drops. Like, I'd say about 2/3 of his deck is low drops. And Sun Titan is just powerful in that regard. He's also running Darien, King of Keljor, which is a human soldier now. Its text got errated. And it makes soldiers for him.
If I get hit, yeah.
Yeah, if he takes a hit, he gets soldiers for it. And then Hour of Revelation is just a better planar cleansing, because if there's 10 or more non-land permanents on the field, it costs 3. It just costs 3 white to cast. And being mono white, he should be able to cast that reliably every turn. And then his only 7-drop is a good combat trick for making all of his creatures indestructible and giving him an additional 8 power on board.
Yep.
Over the course of 4 creatures.
Good for defense.
I looked at your 3-drops. Yeah, I looked at these.
Yeah, I'd say like I mainly use this thing on defense, really, kind of.
Yeah, it's more of a defense card for you. However, you do need to be aware that you have to have spell mastery for it.
Yep. 2.
So at least 2 instant sorceries in the yard before that effect works.
Right.
And it's not super heavy in that, so you need to be careful when you cast that. Because I'm looking through... I found 3 in your 3-drops. This does not bode super well. There's 1. There's 2. So we're up to 5. 3, 6, 7, 8. Nine, 10, 11. Nope, not 11 yet. 11, 12. Okay, you shouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
If you hit above 12, it should be fine.
Right.
There's 14 right there. Plus there's another one sitting on top. So that's 15 cards. So you should be fine on that. It's just something you do need to be aware of because you're not going to have as many as I am.
Right.
So I'm going to be more reliably casting those cards. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this guy up. We're going to be having a lot of fun with our new commander decks. I just need to get mine sleeved up. I did sleeve up the Jaces because aesthetics for Jaces in my nice blue sleeves.
I made my sleeves black because of the black blade.
Okay, you had a reason. And not just because they were laying around. But I'd like to thank everyone who showed up to watch this today. I really appreciate all your guys' support, and I hope to see you guys in more of my streams. Like I said before, if you did miss anything, I do upload most of my stuff to YouTube, so if you miss stuff, you can catch up on it on YouTube. And the Jace deck will be going up on YouTube, and I will be listing a link in that description of that video so that you can see the final product in case you missed it. And was there anything you wanted to add?
No, well, I just wanted to say thanks for having me on the stream.
Of course, man. It's always fun to have you on the stream.
Yep.
You bring light to this game in a way of it being fun.
Oh, yeah.
Because my last guest was all about, this is a serious conversation. And having fun with this is also part of it.
Right.
And he did also add a bit of fun to it because he's like, I'm not a terrible human being. And he was running some really, really mean cards.
Salty. Yep. Salt.
And I was like, are you sure you don't hate your opponents?
I'm going to have fun with Gideon, though.
Yes, I will hopefully have fun with Jace, and I can hopefully mill out Molotov.
I would want to see that. Of course, what I really want to see is, like, the Gideon Master of Trials emblem with Laboratory Maniac, like, just have that go off and...
So that nothing happens at the mass... So that nothing happens?
Yep. All that build up for nothing.
We did have to look up rulings on that of what would happen if you would try to win with Laboratory Maniac when he has a Gideon Planeswalker with the Gideon of the Trials emblem. And what happens is nothing happens.
Exactly.
Your other opponents don't lose if you were the Laboratory Maniac person because you can't win. So, because you can't win, the other two players don't lose either. So they get to stay alive and help you deal with that Gideon, but they're likely going to murder you instead. Because you're literally sitting on no cards in library with a Laboratory Maniac.
It's stuff like this. I always have to say my catchphrase: "Let's politic."
Now hold on a second. Let me politic here.
I've already initiated the politic first. Listen, guys. Look to your left. Look to your right. Who do you see? Me or Gavin? You have a road to choose. You can pick the right path to Gavin, or you can pick the left path to me. Which way will offer you more enlightenment?
Depends on how tired they are of the game.
Yes.
And also, everyone hates the Platinum Angel effect. I played Platinum Angel, and no one took care of it, and I won because of it, and they were kind of salty about it. And I was like, why didn't you remove it?
That's kind of
I'm not going to cast my removal on that.
Yeah, that's kind of...
Plus 90% of my removal didn't hit it anyways, so...
Yeah.
Because it doesn't cause black. And most of my stuff is like, hit colored permanents. Great job.
God.
But yeah.
I remember that one time, I always have fun with the Rakdos with the Eldrazi trial when I got all the Titans out on the fields.
Yeah, you did get all the Titans out. And it was annoying. You won, hands down, on that one.
Well, and you guys let me play Runescar Demon and my other search stuff. Yep.
No, you didn't. It wasn't search stuff. You drew 3 of them off of your Kozilek Butcher of Truth.
That was extreme luck. I don't think that's ever going to happen again.
You did it the next game.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Don't even lie to me. You did it the next game, too. And then I table shuffled that deck for you.
Yeah.
To be fair, it deserved it. But anyways, we're not here to discuss discuss Rakdos. Those are just kind of similar strategies that we also use. He likes creature-based stuff. I'm more of a spells kind of guy, and I like to play the slower control decks that kind of grind people out a little bit.
Right.
Unless it's Chromium. Chromium hit pretty hard, but I had to stay alive until I could play him.
Right.
But yeah, then I replaced that with Aminatu, the Fate Shifter, and that deck is interesting to play.
Yeah, I remember when you got two ultimates off.
Yeah, they let me ult that thing twice in the same game, and I was like, huh. Mm-hmm. You guys let me do this twice. And you know what the result was after that? Immediate board wipe. They didn't have a choice. I had all their stuff.
Wow.
Because I didn't give them anything.
Oh, gosh. It's chaos.
It was chaos. But anyways, I'd like to thank everyone who showed up for watching, and I will see you guys in my next stream. You guys all have a great day.